Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Super Bowl Game Saturday on Friday. So it's Super Bowl Game Almost Saturday, and unlike last week where we had two shows, this week this is our only show. But we got a good show for you tonight, and we have our annual pre-Thanksgiving weekend Disney show for this. Hello, Dolly Finn. So good to see you tonight. Yeah, so good to see you for the game that Dolly Finn in chat wanted to see. Yeah, because every year, the weekend before Thanksgiving, for a big Thanksgiving showcase, which is coming up next Saturday, by the way, next Saturday at 3 p.m. We'll talk about that in schedule. Play a game tied to Disney in some capacity. I realized the first couple years I was doing this for the show that I was doing it by accident. Link below, by the way, in the edit will also be all of the shows for our pre-Thanksgiving Disney shows. But I realized the first couple years, we looked at Castle of Illusion, we looked at Kingdom Hearts because we're playing it, and then when we got to Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse, I realized, wait a sec, we've been doing this the weekend before Thanksgiving each year, so it's an annual tradition. Thank you for this one. Of course, Dolly Finn, thank you so much for your request of this one. You're seeing on the screen what it is. Also, just to give you an idea, I want to level with you before we start the show tonight. I had to actually quickly get new tech as far as the setup for this, including a new PC in order to run it, because what happened was actually I've been running a case of my Windows for a while, so I had to go out and get a laptop last night, kind of on semi-emergency, but that's the benefit of it being a couple days before Black Friday. They got a lot of really good deals on stuff that actually is pretty good, including exactly what I was looking for, what I needed for the purpose of the show. So if there are any audio problems, let me know. I'm also maybe going to do some shows in the future to try and get a sense of maybe there's something. Maybe the issues we had with, the audio going bad was a problem with my old PC that we streamed from. But tonight we're streaming with a new case. It is reflecting our old setup, and we are doing it because Dolly Finn, I was not going to say to you, oh no, we're not going to play the game you want to. I can get all my edits out from last week. There's a little bit of a rush to get that set, but we are set, and we are here to play the game that Dolly Finn for sure wanted to see. It looks and sounds good. Well, thank you. Just if you do get a sense feel, don't be afraid to tell me, just because I want to make sure, hey, we're going to do this, because as we always say, we always take the viewer requests seriously, because this is our perspective, and the picture's very clear. Alright, thank you. It does look kind of similar to how we had it before, but I just want to give a little bit of a primer before we started, because we're getting a look at what we have on the screen of the game we're going to play. Thanks to Dolly Finn in our chat, I should say. Alright, we're playing Pinocchio. Playing on the Super Nintendo. It's also on the Sega Genesis and the Game Boy. And it was going to be on the 32X. I'll get into that in a sec. The game came out in October of a date I could not determine for Sega Genesis and Game Boy first, which were published by THQ, or at least on Game Boy. It was published by Black Pearl Software, which is a subsidiary of THQ. It came out a month later on November 11th of 1996 for Super Nintendo, but on Super Nintendo, Nintendo published this game themselves. That was weird. The case, it is the same game on the other systems, well, except Game Boy, but Nintendo decided we want to publish this ourselves. That was 2 months after the Nintendo 64 came out, and maybe that was my case because, as it turned out, this was the last 16-bit Disney game to ever come out as far as the consoles are concerned. There's stuff coming out on the Game Boy Advance years later, which is kind of an in-between of a 16-bit and 32-bit handheld device, but this was the case of it as far as what it was. It was published by Nintendo as far as the US. In Japan, it was published by Capcom. So now it's a Capcom game if you really want to look at it. And as I mentioned, it was going to be on the 32X as well, the add-on of Sega's for the Sega Genesis. But because of the poor sales of the device, the fact that the Sega Saturn had come out, it's been out for about a year at that point, they basically said, we're not going to put this out. It was completed, and I believe the game, first the prototype was dumped online, then the game itself, I think, was dumped online, and then it was also put to reproduction cartridges. And there was also a project that was, from what I understand, updating the 32X release, I guess, as it was going to have been had it released. And it was kind of a half and half of what I've seen. We'll get into that specifically as far as what the idea is. That it's kind of a half and half between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version. Dolphin asked for the Super Nintendo version. I asked you which one you want to see. She said this one. For some of the aspects of the color, and you're saying the picture is very clear, that's a good case, especially later on. You're going to be glad that we picked this version, or that you picked this version. Not that it's deficient on Genesis from what I've seen. And on 32X, the thought was that basically it was going to have the same soundscape that the Genesis had. And then the color palette, where it was limited on Sega Genesis, was going to be enhanced by the 32X to kind of look like this game is a little bit, but without the zoomed-in screen resolution that oftentimes goes with this system. Not bad, though. In fact, for this game, it's not going to be too big a deal. it's something that usually comes up when it comes to the Console Wars show, because they did do an episode on this. I'll link down to that below when we edit. But yeah, for this game, it was developed by, because I didn't talk about who made this, it was developed by Virgin Studios of London. This was technically the only game this team made, but it's going to the idea of Virgin Games going back in the 90s, because they were involved as far as their endeavors of other things aside from, well, they're involved with their airliner, which is still around today, and also stuff in technology and also in entertainment. And one of those was gaming. There was Virgin Games, which was kind of the start of Shiny, the people were going to make Aladdin for Sega Genesis and Earthworm Jim and Cool Spot. But as far as this one, it was kind of a little bit of a branch off, and it was also a case that, as far as the background who made it, it was something where, yeah, it's kind of a lot of cases of people who worked in the days of the Amstrad CPC, the Amiga, and also the ZX Spectrum a little bit. And also, Virgin, of course, their Virgin's trains and planes are fab. Okay, so right, their transportation perspective, I remember it was like late 90s that was starting to kind of come around as far as that. And actually, with Virgin Games, they were around as far as a idea of themselves, Virgin Entertainment. They stopped in 1999, and that came up because they were going to be publishing a game that's definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum of this one in terms of appropriateness for families. That was going to be Thrill Kill for the PlayStation, which was a 3D fighting game that was developed by Paradox Entertainment, the people who would go on to make Wu-Tang Shaolin Style on the PlayStation and the Backyard Wrestling games. And it was a case, that was a game that was going to be rated adults only for its violence. But then when Virgin went out as far as their entertainment division, Electronic Arts picked that up. They said, we're not interested in releasing this thing. We don't want to take the firestorm of this. And it got canceled. But as far as Virgin's element on gaming, it was something, and we did see this a lot. In fact, I know Electrus brought this up when we looked at The Lion King last year, because Virgin Games did publish that as well, and they were kind of involved with the development along with Westwood Studios for that. But for that one, it was something that, and Electrus said this when we played that game last year, he was saying, oftentimes you really got the sense they really wanted to reflect the entertainment medium that they're focusing on, in this case, the movie or the animated film of Pinocchio from 1940, which of course is based on the 1889 novel by Carlo Collodi. Yeah, the idea of the young wooden puppet boy who dreams of becoming a real boy, specifically because his father Geppetto, he wishes that he had a son of his own. He's kind of a puppet maker and clockmaker in town, and him and his cat, Figaro, and I just want to make sure I watched the movie the other day, so I have to remember that. The cat Figaro and his fish Cleo. Case that, yeah, he wakes a wish upon a star, as you're hearing when you wish upon a star. As far as the music, we'll get to that as we go. Casing that, you know, my pup is like, man, I wish he was real. But then he becomes real. He goes on a lot of weird adventures, including the idea that he literally becomes a jackass, as the movie is indicating, or he's transforming into one. We'll get into that as we go, and going on to the side of the mountain. So a case of something as far as a fable for children, but also something that, we'll go into this on the movie as we go, because it follows it very closely. Much more closely than I think I expected it would. And I saw the movie a couple days ago, getting ready for today's show, and realized, yeah, you're right, this is real on point, and you'd think, how could they turn this into a game for the setup of that? But they found a cool way to do it, and it's one that I missed growing up, because we talked about Disney games of the 16-bit era. A lot we played one last week with Castle of Illusion, but something that, I played The Lion King, I played Aladdin, both versions of Aladdin, but this one, I missed. I guess it was because the Nintendo 64 just come out. Not that I was thinking, this doesn't seem like a good case, but something where it was kind of surprising. I think, although I'm not sure, this was released, I guess, to coincide with video cassette release. I think there was a 1996 video cassette release of this. Remember VHS kitties? I guess all of you might remember, I don't know, we've talked about that before. That was the case of that. Nowadays, it's DVD is an ancient tech, but then Blu-ray, and in this case, physical media is almost a non-issue completely. Hence why I rented the movie off of Amazon Prime a couple days ago. But before we get started, I do want to talk a little bit of what I found on background, which admittedly wasn't a whole lot. Mostly it was a case of who directed this, because, like, okay, what's background? Because I'd heard some cases of some of the people who were involved with The Lion King and Aladdin who were kind of involved in this as far as the games. Sort of. But for this one, the person who directed this, it was Daniel Marchand. His background mostly, as I mentioned, was not with a lot of Disney properties that I noticed. Although he did do game design on the game based on Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, which was on Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and I think it was on Atari Jaguar. It was on a lot of things. You remember that movie they made about the story of Bruce Lee from the 90s that was like a big push, but then it kind of got forgotten. They made a game based on it. He also was the designer on Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare for the Game Boy Color. It is on the Nintendo Switch Online app for Game Boy and Game Boy Color, where they basically took that PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast real-time, or not real-time, survival horror game. It kind of plays a lot like the console games do. You think the Game Boy Color can't do this. It kind of can. It shows off some nice tech, as you're also seeing in this game with the animations. So I guess Merchant had an interesting case as far as that. He also was project design on Saint Dragon on the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CP, or the Amstrad CPC, and he was also involved in Star Control for the PC. And then the only other thing, really, I guess, to go into is the music, because one thing I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is the fact that we're dealing with someone pretty big in the industry as far as it, if you're into retro gaming, and one we have sort of shown on the show before. And when I realized, wait, this person did the music on this, like, first off, explains why it's so good, and second off, yeah, we get to talk about him finally. That is, of course, the one and only Alistair Brimble. His background, again, is also a lot of stuff going back into the PC days of the 80s and 90s with stuff like Rockstar Ain't My Hamster for the Amiga, as well as the fantastic Disney games of Codemaster, specifically Disney Excellent Adventures and Big Nose the Caveman, like Big Nose Rides Again, which I believe was on NES. And he also did the Commodore 64 version of Rampart, the Midway arcade game, a couple PC ports, specifically the Lost Vikings, the music in that for the PC, as well as the PC version of the original Mortal Kombat and its Game Gear version, which it got re-released a couple weeks ago in the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. And also he did music for other licensed properties, including The Lawnmower Man, the game based on that from the 90s, as well as the game based on Toy Story for Sega Genesis, as well as Rat Attack for Nintendo 64, which is this game that I got in this discussion a couple weeks ago with Chasm22. You're saying, how complete is your Nintendo 64 collection? Not totally complete. I may have the rarest game on that system, but it's like, Rat Attack is another one. So it's like, what is this? It's this weird maze game. I don't know what to say about it. Like, what is this thing? Like, yeah, he did the music for it as well. Kind of this cartoony thing that kind of also, like this one, came and went a little at the end of the console's life cycle. He's did music for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 for the Game Boy Color, as well as Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. And actually, we have heard his stuff on a, not live show. We did our Nintendo Switch 2 Chronicles videos this year on Part 2 that we uploaded back in September. We took a look at Ice Age Scrat's Nutty Adventure. Alistair Brimble did the music for that. It's kind of this very epic sounding, like 3D platforming adventure kind of sound, also based on a license. And one that reflects it pretty well, although unlike that one, this one does have music and elements going on to the movie, and that one's kind of its own thing as far as how it was. But yeah, that is the idea as far as who was involved with the music and also what was going on to this. So I think in that case we can get ourselves started and look at the options, because the way we're going to run this game, this is not a very long game, just to give a sense of this. And you know, since it's kind of quiet, I'm going to put up something for the sound test while I explain this. It sort of has to load it a little as far as from the cart, but then it starts going with pieces of music from the movie, particularly in this case, An Actor's Life for Me. We'll get to that as far as the pieces of music from the film that are represented in this. Okay, give an idea, you have your option of difficulties in this game. You have easy, normal, and hard. I wasn't honestly sure about how I want to handle this, because this game is not too long. And I actually only kind of came up with this idea about 20 minutes ago when I was doing the audio tests. And that was, I think we should show this game on every difficulty. I'm going to start on normal, but the idea of what it does is that easy changes some of the level layouts. It also makes certain levels easier with some hints that they give you, particularly the last one. Normal also is a case of running the game with all the levels, but they are fully going through. Like, the first level is way shorter on easy, as far as we'll show that a little later. But the other difference is that when you pick up hats and books, they get you lives and continues. And the amount you have to collect in order to get them changes based on difficulty. And there's hard, where you take more damage. The levels are the same, but it's also a case where you don't have as many lives or continues. And just to go on that briefly, the idea is we're going to see books picking up as we go on our way to school as far as this. On easy, pick up 5 of those to get a continue. It's 10 on normal and 15 on hard. And for the hats, you pick up 3 of them to get an extra life if you're on easy, or 5 on normal, or 10 on hard. So to start on this, I'm going to go with normal, but we'll take a look at the other ones. I do think it's worth showing off to this, because I don't know necessarily how much this game really has been shown off as far as kind of going deep. And also, this is not a long game. I actually finished this on my test the other day. I think in about maybe an hour. But part of that was 20 minutes at the last level. We'll get to that as we go. But that being said, that's how we're going to go. You also have your audio as far as stereo mono for the music, or you can turn it off. We're not turning off. You can also have sound effects on or off if you want to, but keep them on. There's a sound test for everything, and your controls, of which B button is your jump. Y is an attack that you have to pick up, and it's something that the game will spot you. As I realized on my audio test, there's a stage select code for this game. I'll show the codes off as well before we end the show tonight. It depends on the idea of you having the attack, but when you go through the stage select, the game actually cannot be beaten on some of the levels because you need that attack. And as far as X for the shield, there's only one level that actually uses this, believe it or not. It's the second level, and we'll see that as far as it, but outside of that, that's about it, and then you're just moving around D-pad left and right and all that stuff. And some other things will go as we go along. And you can also watch the credits of the game if you want, but there's no audio for that, so I'm going to not do that. So in that case, hit start. I think we're going to get ourselves started. It does start like the movie in the sense that it does have the same intro graphics that we saw when we first booted the game up, and also looking at the book. As we saw at the beginning of the movie, Jiminy Cricket saying, like, yeah, wishing upon a star. I didn't believe it at first, but then I met this young boy named Pinocchio, and that kind of changed my perspective. So in that case, we can get ourselves started. Worth pointing out, in this version, you do not have music when you're in the story interludes. On Genesis, you do. It keeps playing when you wish upon a star. But it does explain, with some nice perspectives of the graphics, kind of like a book. I mean, it is a book, absolutely. Without color, but a nice touch, saying we're kind of reading from the book here, saying, okay, telling the story of the movie. Because it starts the idea that Jiminy Cricket, he's kind of a vagabond in the movie, and they do kind of show that here with the idea that his hat has a bit of a rip in it. So he's saying, hey, I'm looking for a place. I find this Italian village where this young boy is saying, like, I created my puppet, Pinocchio. He's like, yeah, maybe he'll be a real boy one day. I was like, yeah, I don't think so, but I'll wish upon a star. Well, by doing that, the Blue Fairy comes around. She brings Pinocchio to life and says, if you are able to prove yourself true, brave, and unselfish, I will grant you the ability to be a real boy and get your father's wish. So that's the idea of what we got to do. We have to go through the game and get these badges. They're going to go to us based around just us playing. You do sort of have decisions on being able to do some of these things or not. We'll have that element going, and I will show some of that as we go. I love Jiminy Cricket. Yeah, and it's interesting watching the movies, and as we saw before the movie, saying he heard the sound of like somebody talking, and then Geppetto got his gun initially, as far as the movie. It's like, what is this? Like, wait a second, Pinocchio, my puppet. He's alive. And then in that case, it's like, well, all right, raise him like a son. You have to go to school and learn all these things. He keeps asking why. He's like, well, just because. But yeah, we'll see you later. But the thing about Jiminy Cricket that's interesting is that he's kind of a bit of a reluctant conscience, as it is, which I thought kind of interesting as the movie went. And we'll definitely see him as we go. All right, here we are on the first level. We are in the town to the tune of An Actor's Life for Me. So yeah, fa-diddle-dee-dee, An Actor's Life for Me. And it's a pretty good rendition. Also, I do want to bump the volume. I just want to make sure the volume is loud enough, because this game, actually, I have to really quiet, and I have to adjust it a little. So, all right, we're in town with Pinocchio. Look at his animations. Look at this. Dolphin, you had a good reason, I think, for showing this, saying, look at this. It almost looks like they're doing stuff from the movie, including when he's walking across, like, pushing at something. He's like, trying pushing. Ugh. You even see his hair moving a little bit as far as that. So, very fluid. He has a bit of a floaty jump, hit B button for the purpose of jump, and he does have a lot of frames going on, kind of like with Mickey Mania and other games that we saw as far as that. Just moving left and right and jumping. That's all you gotta do to start. But there is Honest John. He's giving a sense, and you're hanging on the edge. If you do hang on too long without pressing up, you're not gonna go anywhere. But you also can slide down. Yes. So yeah, there you go. It is interesting to see. And on Super Nintendo, you also have the details of the backgrounds there. You're seeing the street lamps, which the Genesis version does not have from what I saw. He's just going on there, and there is Honest John. He's like, hey, you know, we're going to school, but the idea is that, you know what, maybe you've got the perspective of being an actor. It's like, yeah, let's go and join Stromboli's puppet show. That's the idea, but for now, we're just gonna go around, pick up the hats. As I mentioned, the hats will give you lives, and you pick up 5 of them, as far as normal. And you're seeing the great attention to details in the background, the way the parallax scrolling is going on with the buildings back there, and also the signposts. You jump on these, you spin around. If you don't press anything, you'll launch down below in just a second. But you have to be careful of the chickens. They will come and get you, and I'll show you coming to get you. See that great animation? They're basically tearing me apart, but it's a case of, oh, I'm getting a bit dizzy. It does hurt you. By the way, your health is the star up there. You get that depleted, you're gonna fall down dead. But for the purpose of that, what you do is you jump on the wooden sign. As you spin, press the B button, and you're able to launch yourself in the air, but you can adjust yourself and move left or right, and you're gonna have to do that. You just have to be careful. The smokestack, there are the birds going on. Ow! So that attention, he is kind of running up as far as this, because he can't just run up on his own as far as this. He's almost doing like the Sonic the Hedgehog thing, like, I think I can do this, but in that case, just keep jumping up. Yeah, the sound's great. Yeah, it is great, and as far as reflecting the movie, but also the way that Alistair Brimble did the audio for this one, definitely was reflecting a lot of stuff, and also a lot of his style. I don't know if he played anything else he's done music for. Actually, one of the games he did music for that I did not mention, another licensed game, was, the Flintstones Burger Time in Bedrock, which is on the Game Boy Color. It is actually a redo of Burger Time, the Data East game. And it's got this kind of, as people say, Amiga sound to itself, but it sounds really high quality, and it's really interesting stuff. And you're also seeing there the gray bricks on the roof. And if you're lying down there, you do not get hurt, by the way, falling, so it's okay. And there's Gideon tossing out the flower pots, just like in the movie. It's an interesting case of seeing, kind of capturing that license in a weird way for that one. And we also have to go to school, but the other thing you gotta do is, okay, it's optional for some of these. We're seeing this page over here. In this stage, there are 4 pages you can pick up. And 1 you do have to pick up, because otherwise the game would be unbeatable without it. There's a white paper, a blue paper, and a yellow one. The white one here, when you pick this up, this is something that's not gonna come into effect yet, and the first 3, except the red one, are optional. But for this one, when we get to level 6, it's gonna let you do something a little later that actually is a nice bonus, although it is a little weird to say this, the idea that they give you upgrades of sorts, and then it's a case where, if you don't get them, you can't do them later, although the only one you really need is the attack. And they're gonna give you the attack when you get to the end of the stage. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep going, but, there's the yellow one. Actually, you know what? Okay, the yellow page, when you get this, I guess, Dolphin, okay, I know you've seen this movie, and probably a lot of people have. There's a level that takes place at Pleasure Island. We're definitely gonna go there. If you get that paper there, the yellow one, you get the ability to hang on balloons for longer in one section. Actually, I didn't know what they did, but the good news is that the instruction manual of this game, which I will link down below, the PDF of, it does tell you in the manual, like, oh, by the way, go get these things, and you'll be able to have these extra skills. And they say specifically, oh yeah, they're in the first level. But also you have this, windowsill. If you land on it, it cracks, and you have to kind of off-screen in order to come back. But if you're quick, I can jump on the edge over there, grab it, and get the hat. And you are able to grab on the side of the ledges, which is really nice. This can just keep walking around, just avoid Gideon throwing everything, and you'll be okay. It's not too bad. And honestly, this game isn't that hard, but it's something that, because of the difficulty options the game gives you, it is something that it will challenge players as far as at all ages. Kind of the same way Castle of Illusion did last week. A little differently, yes, but not necessarily completely foreign as far as the way that game operates. Alright, there is, Honest John again. I do want to show this, because you walk along. Yeah, he puts down the, actually, what he does in the movie. He puts down the end of the umbrella and trips you, basically like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy. But, hey, you got a good perspective of body and strength, and maybe, that nice face. Maybe Stromboli will want something with you, which, anyway, he is right about. I'll see that going as we go. Now, I do want to see one thing as we go, because the only really thing you gotta do is basically follow the signs at school. On easy use, will show you basically just go in one door and you're at school. That's basically it. But right there, that blue paper, I want to go get that. We pick that up, you have a higher jump. Not by much, but it is enough to make a little bit of a difference. You can kind of jump up on the sides of the walls here a little easier. But to get the items down here where Gideon is, just jump on this one. I wasn't sure how to do this when I first played, but I said, oh, just hang out. But of course, he's throwing his shoe out, but you can also pick up the items. You're also seeing the clouds there in the background, which do look really, really nice. Gives a perspective of, the nice sunny day. And you also jump on the water thing there, and you're seeing that, again, the great animation of how Pinocchio's going. I'll show that again. He's kind of doing the launch up, like, wow, look at that. You're kind of going on this great adventure as far as him, and it is unique. Even if it is a case where this is a little bit of creative liberty in the sense that we didn't exactly go all the way towards school, And that, I'm gonna sort of make it like the movie in the sense we're not gonna go to school completely, at least not yet. Because you do have a choice not to go to school, sort of. But, lest you think this is something like The Wolf Among Us that we played this year, where, like, you have a choice of choosing where the story goes. Not quite. But one thing I do want to show also when I'm in town. There's Aunt John. She's taking the walk down. Yeah, look at that attention to detail again as far as his animation. But the other thing is, yeah, Gideon smacks me against the wall, but look at that. The outline on the side of the wall when it hits me. So, again, all these little details that you see that you'd think in another game, they wouldn't have to do that necessarily. Then why bother? But, Dolphin, you said when we started Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, we're going to finish that next month. Ouch. Although you don't get hurt when you do that, at least I don't. You know, I'll let it down here if you get hurt. I don't think you do. Because a lot of stuff doesn't hurt me, including that and that. But you said this. You said, hey, you know, when it comes to representing license, what's the way that companies want to do it? And for the purpose of something like this, where this was a while after we got tons of Disney games as far as the 16-bit era. You'd think, well, with this enterprise, would people really say, oh yeah, we want to put that much effort into this? But the answer, yeah, they kind of did, and you really appreciate that. And it's an interesting capper off to the 16-bit era as far as these kinds of games, but also to Virgin games, which I think this is, as far as I remember. I'll edit this is not right. I think it is the last game of theirs as far as Disney is concerned. But okay. You do have to go to school for the purpose of doing this, but also they say you can take Easy Street. I'm going to take Easy Street for the purpose of demonstration. Because you come here, the little fairy says, like, wait a second, yeah, what are you doing? So you stopped me early, I do get the nose case going on, I get stripped of all my pages. And when you do that, you have to go back to, it sort of treats that like a death, sort of, in the sense that it takes you back, but then the other thing is just go get the page again, which I'm going to do. Yeah, you can tell they put a lot into this. Yeah, you're right. And that's something that we talked about this sometimes when it comes to a lot of Disney games of the 90s. The thought that sometimes when you think about a licensed game, there was always that perspective saying, wait, are they going to get the license and that's it? And that sometimes is the stereotype. But honestly, I'll tell you, even with the Disney games that sometimes were not that great, at least the ones I played, I never got the sense that they completely half-assed them, with the exception of, apparently, because I haven't played this yet, so I don't know, Fantasia for the Sega Genesis, which was, it was Sega who published that. It was Infogrames who developed it. It was not the same people who made Castle of Illusion. I remember I was under that impression for years, saying, oh wait, it's the Castle of Illusion team that made this. But the answer is, no it isn't. And it was so bad that Roy Disney ordered every unsold copy of the game destroyed. But they made so many, it's insanely easy to find, so you don't ever have to be in a case of saying, oh, I want to see, how bad is this game really? And you're like, oh, you're going to spend like $1,000 or something on that game. No, it's only costs like $10. Okay, maybe it does hurt you. But if nothing else, it does show that, again, attention to detail of this game, that is really, really nice. But I do want to get the other page. Because as far as when you get them knocked out, because I didn't lie. I just said, oh, I'm taking the easy way instead of, being a good boy and going to school. Okay, there you go. That's the last one. What happens when it's John? Well, yeah, like with the movie, we'll see. Because, yeah, you're right. Usually the idea is we just met him in the movie. And then the idea is that he said, okay, let's go to Stromboli's show. Because, like, hey, you have the perspective. Okay, there you go. I got the red page. By the way, the red page, what that does is hit the Y button, get the spin attack. You do need this. And it's worth pointing out, if you do not pick up the red page when you're walking through this stage, when you go to school, because this is the end of the level when we go through here, you get spotted. That page is on the ground, and the in-game cutscene has Pinocchio walking over it. But I do have everything we need, so I got the white paper, the blue one, which gives me the higher jump, the red one, which you do need in order to complete the game, because there's parts where that attack is required. It's kind of weird with that going on. Yeah, Sean tempts Pinocchio. Yes, he does, although weird enough, in the movie, I'll say this, maybe I took it a little differently watching it again, saying, okay, by doing this, I do have my perspective of bravery. So I get that a little earlier than in the movie. He does tempt him, but honestly, Pinocchio is so fresh as far as being alive. He's like, hey, that book, you don't need that. So it's like the movie saying, oh, you can go and join Stromboli's show. So Pinocchio's truant. Yeah, exactly. Although it's a case where he kind of doesn't have an opportunity to even say no. So yes, he's tempted, you're right. But also he doesn't necessarily have an idea of saying what's going on. So he says, like, okay, we're going to go see Stromboli. He has a marionette show. You'd be great because you're a puppet without strings. Jiminy's saying, look, where are you going? I sort of tried to warn him, but then he's like, no, I'm kind of keep going. But as we see in the movie, and this is unique, they made the level based on this, we're playing as Jiminy Cricket in this stage. Yeah, like in the movie, he's saying like, yeah, he went, and I'm upset as far as this thing, oh, I'm so unconscious I turned out to be. And X button, by the way, is your shield with his parasol. But the idea is that, at first they're saying, where did this come from the movie? But when Stromboli's gonna start a show, Jimmy sees the shows in town. He says like, I'm over by this lamppost where these moths are. Let me go hang around. And he whips his parasol. That's a Y button, by the way. Basically hit them, and what you have to do in this level is you basically got to knock them all away, and then you sit down and enjoy the show. The other bugs will not be a case where you have to get rid of them, but they can't hurt you. Yeah, there he is, indeed. Yeah, where's Jiminy Cricket when we need him? He's like, yeah, that's true, but also the case that at first he's saying like, well, he doesn't need me. He's like, yeah, I'm not a good conscience. And in some ways, even in the movie, it's a case where Jiminy Cricket kind of seems to be this perspective of, wait, he wants a place to stay because he's kind of a vagabond the way he shows. And maybe he's semi-lascivious a little, but also in that, polite way of saying like, hey, he accidentally, touches the behind, if you will, of like one of the toys in Geppetto's shop. He's like, oh, pardon me, ma'am. But the case is saying like, oh, he wants to be, that gentlemanly guy. He is impressed and maybe semi-infatuated with the Blue Fairy a little. And by the way, when you're with Jiminy, you hit the X button in the air. Oh, I jumped down there. He gets kind of stuck down there. Yeah, you jump and hit the X button. You do have the parasol that lets you go down, but don't fall off, otherwise you die. Right, I probably should show the death here, because this is how it goes. And when you do die, the Blue Fairy does revive you. We're pointing out this is the only level where we play as Jiminy Cricket. So it's weird that this is the only stage that you're doing that. But the way your checkpoint works here is basically just how many of these, moths you knock away. And hearing on the soundtrack the way the music going on of, do a little whistle. No, I gotta do it right. And weird enough, when I was doing my tech checks on this, I had my mic set where it was actually muting or not picking up the whistles I did. Give a little whistle. Give a little whistle. And they have that reflecting really nicely. And you're seeing also in the background there's the moon, there's Stromboli's show. We're just kind of hanging around. And you do have your wands here, so if you're running out of health, you can kind of go and get them. In this case, I'd say basically just wait around and just hit them around. But you do get that great attention to detail. You're right, the fact that you have the umbrella of his, but also the fact that you held the X button, you do put it up, and you have the other bugs bump into it. Like, I'll try and get that one. You do not have to call the other ones. It's great. Yeah, it is great. And unique. Well, I guess it's kind of surprised that you don't play as Jiminy Cricket more. Well, maybe they would have thought that they would have something else going on. As far as other games you play as him in, well, he's our god in Kingdom Hearts. We played Kingdom Hearts 1, and he was along for the ride, and he was keeping stuff in track on the journal. As far as other games, I don't know. Dollyfin, do you know other games where he's playable? I don't think he's playable in a game I know we'd have to be a little careful showing on the show, which is Walt Disney World Magical Racing Tour, which is on PlayStation and Dreamcast. I'd have to mute a lot of music of that because it's based on Disneyland attractions and use the actual pieces of music for them, including like for Pirates of the Caribbean. So they have like, yo ho, a pirate's life for me. They actually have that on the soundtrack. I know I'd get content strike to hell. Oh, but there you go. We did beat it. So we got rid of all the moths to sit down, and he blows the fire off of it, and you can enjoy the show. I'm not aware. Yeah, I'm not either. Maybe we can find another one and get that set. But alright, so we're done as far as that, and we're back with Pinocchio as we're going to be dancing at Stromboli's show. And they give you a tutorial of how I have no strings to hold me down. I press the buttons and I'll go down. But yeah, and that's not how they say as far as the movie. But yeah, basically use the face buttons to do either a hand to the left on Y, hand to the right on X, and you have to follow their pattern. So he says like hand to the right, or hand to the left, hit Y. So in that case, it's Y, and then on the right is X. And then you get your feet involved. Your feet are on the B button, so you basically follow the sequence. In this case, left is for your left foot, and right foot is on the A button. So it starts easy of left, right, foot right. Oh, he's also in Disney Villain's Revenge on the PC. Okay, I've never played that one. Have you? And how is that? And we can get stuff going on the PC side. Also, if you do well enough, as far as you get tossed money like in the movie and get health. But now we're also going along. We had the Russian dancers. We also have the flamenco dancers. We do the spin, hit up on the D-pad. But there's one thing this game does not tell you, and the manual does tell you, and if you're playing on easy, you don't have to do this, but for this one, they're going to throw you a little curveball, and I didn't actually know when I was doing my test initially what was going on. I never played it either. Oh, and, Epic Power Evolution on 3DS. Yeah, I was just talking about that last week. I want to show that game. But if you do get a bad case, they boo you, they throw tomatoes, and you lose some health. It's not too bad. Okay, in that case, I have to do 2 spins. I do a hand to the left, and then foot to the right. Yeah, that game is really interesting as far as Evan Mickey Power Evolution. I mentioned that last week because it's kind of a spiritual sequel of sorts to Castle Evolution for Sega Genesis that we played. If I get the 3DS stuff situated as far as, capture device on that thing, I definitely want to show that. But now in this case, we also have the Russian women going on, so it does follow the movie really well, but there's one thing that they'll show later, and they didn't actually show it in the button map. And on the Genesis, the only difference as far as it's on the Genesis is the fact that there's not spotlights on everybody, and also the fact that it's showing the 6-button controller for the Genesis for that one, and same for the 32X release, or would have had it come out. In this case, just remember the pattern. It's not too bad. It's not insane. It's not even the most insane memorize the pattern thing out of a Disney game of anything on the 16-bit era, of which that would probably be... If you're going on hard method of, what is it? Of Mickey's Ultimate Challenge, which I have the Sega Genesis version of, that's the case. Alright, I gotta do the hands. I do the hand, do the foot, then I do the spin, and I hit to the left on the hand. There we go. Alright, so I'm getting tons of stuff with it. And now the last part are the Russian dancing men. In this case, they throw you a bit of a curveball, because the last thing I'm gonna do is something that the button prompt didn't tell you. You actually can hit down in one of the kick buttons, that's B or A, for the purpose of doing a direction, and you have to do that, and I did another one of those by accident. Alright, so I do that, and then I just do a spin. So spin right, spin left. Okay, so they do have a bit of a pattern, and I'm gonna sorta, I guess, blind run this on hard. We'll get to that just to see how much does it change it. Okay, right there. For that kick, you'd think, let me show this. You'd think that you do spin right, spin left, and you hit the A button. But that doesn't work. And the reason for that, and the manual explains this, the game itself does not, you have to hit down and the A button to do that drop kick. So, alright, if you do the first one wrong, it's a case of that, but we'll be fine, because you do not take too much damage from this. Well, it's just like in the movie, the case that, I got my nose stuck in the floorboard, and they were, laughing at me, but then I can prove them wrong. Hit down and the A button. That is how you do that. And they're the only ones on normal that do that. And that's the last one that's there, and we are done with our perspective. But of course, like the movie, Stromboli turned out to be a very abusive guy, and so he said, like, you're gonna be mine, and we're going off as far as it. But Geppetto said, he never came home from school. Where is he? It's a dark and stormy night. The carriage is going along. The Blue Fairy comes along because he realizes, like, wait, I can help him. But then he's like, what's going on? And Jiminy Cricket says, like, I think you gotta tell her the truth. He says, like, 2 monsters came up, which started as true. And he's like, wait a minute, they were like green and had all these weird scales. Like, wait a second. And then, of course, his nose grows. And like, wait, what's going on here? It's like, well, maybe you're not telling the truth. I mean, the more you lie, the more it becomes plain as the nose on your face. But when we got out, we were going home, but then Honest John took us. He did a mock medical exam on us, like, oh, you need a trip to Pleasure Island. And Pinocchio tries to say no. It's like, I gotta go home. But he's like, no, you're coming with me, because he made a deal with the coachman as far as Honest John's concerned, saying, hey, I got a proposition as far as young boys here, saying, like, hey, they're truants. He mentioned that as far as that Dolly Finn as well, because we have Lamplight here. He's a boy that Pinocchio meets, and he's saying, like, hey, we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're on Pleasure Island. The case that, yeah, boys can be boys in every way, in the sense of just go crazy. Destroy a mansion if you want to. Take bricks to the mansion. They're throwing mansions, or throwing big bricks at me instead of the mansion, as you have a nice carnival case, the police officer balloon going on there. They're throwing stuff. I could kick him. Yeah, you can make him cry. It's like, yeah, he was coming at me as far as that. So in that case, I guess I can be the bad boy, but in that case, it also stops them from doing stuff. And by getting that, by getting the yellow page, you're seeing the balloons over there. So there's a preview also when we get to Cool Spot, which we're doing next year, by the way. When you come up to the end here, you have these balloons. You jump on them, you hang on them, and you're able to go. The red ones will explode pretty quickly, and they'll go as far as different intervals, but the blue ones will last the longest. If you pick up that white page, it also flies higher. So it means that these items here, you can get these a bit easier. And the green balloons, what they do is they will You have to kind of jump back and forth between them. The green ones will happen is they'll eventually shrink, and then they'll fall. And the red ones, yeah, they will pop as far as it. Although it seemed like they were taking a longer time to do that than I was doing on the practice. Though the page we got, the white page, ouch. That they can also knock your ass out of the sky, which is not fun. It's like, yeah, that kid's, yeah, we are being like a rude little boy, saying, they're throwing bricks at me. I'm saying like, yeah, screw you guys. I'm just here to have some fun. You know, I guess playing pool and smoking as it is, which that is not in this game, by the way. But that goes on, and it's actually a weird case, because in some ways, one thing I guess I know is you're right. Just, as far as Pinocchio, the idea is that he's tempted, yes. But he also is someone who, in a way, is not completely ready or prepared to get a sense of what's really going on here. And one thing I find really interesting going into the movie, and we'll get to this at the end of this stage in particular, is the idea that he kind of, naturally as you go along, kind of starts to intuit the idea that, you know, maybe I should do something different. Not necessarily even because Jiminy's telling him to. Because Jiminy basically says, you know what, I've given up. It's like, hey, look at you smoking, playing pool. But it's like, yeah, that's not a good case. You don't need a conscience because, yeah, you're a lost cause. He leaves and he realizes, wait a second, what's really going on? See what really is going on soon enough. But then, when Jimmy's gone, he kind of gets the sense of saying, like, you know what, maybe I took a big puff on the cigarette or the cigar, and I was like, yeah, first off, it was awful the way that went in specifically, so that I feel like I'm gonna throw up or something. But then he's like, yeah, you know, Lampwick is saying start drinking, and he first is saying like, okay, sure, but then he's just like, he looks as far as what's going on with him later, and he's just like, no, maybe I shouldn't. So he kind of slightly pushes away, it's like, you know what, I'm okay, sort of. And then like, same with the smoking. He's like, okay, that's the idea. But yeah, for this, I am not completely, you know, throwing caution to the wind on this one, although it's not really a big deal. The main penalty really is you just go back. And one thing I didn't show is when this disintegrates. Right, you're seeing there, and it is a great attention to detail that you see on the balloons where they will pop. And the blue ones, they'll pop eventually too, so you do have to be a little worried about that, but it is a while. And at that point, you can then grab onto another balloon to at least keep things going. Basically, you just want to keep going along to be able to grab everything. Ow! But if the boys knock you off, you have to start over again. This part's not bad, and as I said, aside from getting hit with bricks, it's not really going to be too much of a punishment, because falling does not hurt you. But you also get to enjoy the nice carnival atmosphere, and I guess also one thing I guess we didn't really see in the movie that much is that this is almost like an early evening look as far as the carnival here, where it is kind of bright. It is a little darker on Genesis, not just because of the color limitations, but also because, I guess, maybe reflecting the idea is kind of like the night sky as far as what it is, and saying, hey, you know, these Detroit boys can have a good time, but the coachman has other ideas as far as it, and we'll get into this in a second, but I found it interesting they don't actually explain how what we're about to see happens. Alright, there we go, we get the item there, and actually, yeah, this is holding on for a long time. Whoa! Oh no. Okay, so I have to go do that again, but if nothing else, it's alright, because I don't know if I necessarily just want to get everything, or if I just want to say, you know, just enjoy the leisure life, because that's the one thing I'll say about this game, just to go into that. And you can also do the kick in midair as an indication of this, which is that this is a game that's honestly very relaxing. Even when it gets really hard, as far as parts you can see later. It's something where, it's something I did find myself in a pretty interesting state of, I guess, relaxation with all the stuff I was trying to figure as far as stuff for the show this week, getting those edits out, because my other PC kept crashing when I did the render of the Shadow the Hedgehog edit. I actually spent, I think it was Tuesday, trying to get my PC to come back on after I was getting everything set. Like, yeah, I couldn't do it until, like, the day before I had to go to work the morning after. I was like, oh, crap. And that's why I realized, okay, I can't take the risk on this. I need to do something about this now, especially because the showcase we're doing next week, I'm not taking a risk. That, and I also didn't want to necessarily put a risk and say, hey, you know, the PC goes off while we're doing the show. It hasn't. Every time I've done recording, as far as my old setup, even when I was doing this, and I've been doing this a couple months, and I restarted Windows and reinstalled it to make that go, to try and fix it, and I did for a while. It was something that, yeah, it never did when I was recording. Okay, as we're at the roller coaster, we did not see this in the movie. What you gotta do is you have ducking. You can hit down and D-pad to duck, but also the idea you have to jump in certain areas. This, I might die a lot. Basically, what you have to do is you have to jump and ring the bell because it kind of changes the tracks. And the idea is you also have to crouch underneath the gates. Basically, what you want to do is when it goes in the loop, basically just hold down on the D-pad the whole time, pretty much, because there's duck, and sometimes you don't have enough perspective to actually see that. So the easy way to get through this is basically just crouch the whole time and then get a sense of when it's going to go off and make sure you jump quickly. This is actually one of the parts of the game where you can die a lot. If you don't ring the bell, you have to repeat the section, so you have to kind of go back and forth, and you put yourself potentially at risk of dying, because I get myself knocked off. Either I fall or I get knocked off by the place I have to duck down by, you die. And so you do have to start this over. This is seen as one of the most infamous parts of the game for that very reason. Aside from the last level, though I guess the last level makes sense because it's the last level. We also get this great perspective going on as you're hearing like the sounds of the roller coaster going on. And also it is very rickety, so it does look like it's potentially dangerous. And you see danger here, like danger, careful, and danger again to make the jump. And look out. Yeah, not dissimilar, I guess, to the haunted roller coaster in Donkey Kong Country 2, honestly, when you really think about it. But when you get to the end, you see Lampwick here. This is sort of a boss, but all it is it's something that he doesn't do in the movie. But what he does is that he's lighting the rockets. And what's gonna happen is they're gonna shoot along. And you'll also see a rumble going on just a second on the screen. With him shooting off those rockets, that has another effect. It causes roller coaster cars to come by. And when they do and they hit you, you get hurt. It's not an instant kill. I was thinking to myself, wait a second, is that an instant kill? It is not. At least not normal it isn't. Maybe on hard it is. We'll find out. As long as you just see the screen rumbling, when you see that, just jump. That's basically all you gotta do. Every time he shoots off the rockets, it is something where there'll be items that we said, okay, I did jump on that, I got myself hurt, but it's not too bad. And every rocket he shoots off, or every other rocket or so, will give you items, so you don't have to worry about it. So it is a weird case of a boss fight. It's not really a boss fight. I mean, tell me there's only one boss fight in this game. And after enough time, he was like, okay, we're done. Yeah, I guess I ran out of juice as far as that. Okay, so after our night as from the movie where we were doing smoking and playing pool, Jimmy says, I don't think you're a good fit as far as I'm leaving. He said and sees the coachman, all these boys, he's like, yeah, you know what, you're a jackass. And he's like, well, that was literal. Yeah, they're turning into little jackasses for little donkeys. By the time Pinocchio realizes, he's able to avoid the fate that Lampwick did, in the sense of getting himself completely transformed. But he does have ears and a tail. Yeah, hee-haw! And you can get that perspective. I gotta change the audio because this part of the game actually gets really loud. So I'm gonna turn this down to 12. This is actually where the game is a lot louder on the audio than any other case. Yeah, you're getting that sense. Yeah, there you go. He's doing the whip as far as that. It's worth pointing out also. I mentioned when I did the, okay, first off, Pinocchio now has the ears and the tail as far as it's... But we have to escape from the island. Here's the deal. When you put in the stage select code, I'm going to show this. He is an invisible wall. So this looks hilarious saying like I'm pushing against him and he is a hitbox. But if you come in with the stage select, you do not have the kick here. This is the reason why they give you the kick at the start of level 1. When you're on the stage select for this, if you select stage 5, you cannot complete this level at all. You get stuck here. And you can't beat him, but you have to use the kick in order to kick him out of the way. If you do that, you kick him into the water. And you free the other donkey, or... Yeah, there he is, so let's just follow him. In that case, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go. We never see them again. So it is that case of saying, wait, something's going on. Oh, and then he comes out of the crate, which is just like in the movie, actually. And I do like the idea that they don't actually necessarily explain that, which is kind of interesting. And this is also an original piece of music. I don't think it's in the movie. When I saw the movie, they didn't really go into that as far as the sound of it. But also you have like these shadow guys who, again, the movie never says what they are. This almost treats them like a ghost or something. Because he grabs you, he tosses you on the ground and throws you off the side. It's like, yeah, that's amazing as far as how it looks. But if you do kick them, they fade away. So according to this, I guess they're ghosts, but I don't know if that's the idea. And then there's rocks. You have to avoid those, but in this case, basically just climb up and you're all set. There is one thing we're going to do in this stage that you do not do in the movie. You can also go this way and... Can I get up there? Okay, I just can't. I think there's a way to go around. Basically, just to kind of zigzag all over the place in order to get the items Be careful of that because the platforms are going to collapse. Also, be careful if he hits you because he's probably going to throw me off. Yeah, there you go. But if you do fall off, you just basically have to climb up again. I do like this music, and this is something where, as I said, I'm pretty sure this is original music that was not in the movie. But it feels like something that could have been in the movie. And the high instrumentation of the Super Nintendo as far as the quality of how the sound driver was, it really works well for this. Not that it sounds bad on the Genesis exactly, but it's another one of those cases where we're using the Jim's audio driver, as far as which is not a negative case, exactly as I just gotta go kick him when I come back. But the case that with the Super Nintendo, because it ran on a sound chip that was actually designed by Sony, interestingly enough, but the fact that it did have a lot of harmonized music, and for this game in particular, I know there's some cases I'll say on Super Nintendo that orchestrated sound, sometimes it sounds maybe empty, depending on the game. Not this one. This one sounds great. I think maybe it goes to the idea that it is reflecting the idea of the real instruments of the movie soundtrack. Even in the case where this is an original piece of music, and said, hey, you know, it just really makes it sound great. And Alice Brimble definitely got a good sound as far as this, but even as far as the Genesis. But yeah, as far as sound quality, yeah, this one absolutely best the Genesis, no question. Even the 32X version. The 32X version was just running the Genesis audio, really. Because usually that was the idea of how the 32X went. I showed one thing on the show from it, which was Knuckles Chaotix. I gotta figure out showing other stuff. And it's also some tech things I gotta figure out for that one. Just to make sure it all comes through. But a case where it mostly was doing stuff with the graphics. With a couple exceptions. One exception is actually a game that was ported about a month ago. That being Mortal Kombat 2 for 32X, which is in the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Which I have coming next month, because its physical release is on December 12th. I have the Switch 2 version on the way. It is on the physical card on Switch 2, and I cannot wait to play that. That game looks really, really good, and I think if nothing else, will also give Digital Clip some time to also fix some of the problems that people are complaining about, especially some of the sound problems when you go online for fights, some of the lag that's going on. Apparently button lag that only the PS5 version has. I don't think the Switch 2 has it, but also, as I mentioned, Alistair Brimble's music for the Game Gear version of Mortal Kombat is in that collection. I'm just kind of going off here, and actually, in a way, well, first off, am I going the right way, number one? Number two, have I even been over here before? But if nothing else, it shows the idea of how I like to play a platforming game, which is go anywhere and try and find stuff in order to get more health recovery and items and hats. Or books and hats, I should say. But they are items. There's another book I could... Yeah, okay, I can grab on the edge there. Actually, let me just show that. Like, be careful, but I'm not going to let myself fall. Also show this, which is when I'm on the edge of a platform. Am I going to show it here? You know, I'll show it right here. Yeah, if you're on a hangable thing, yeah, look at that attention. It's like, he is doing like the Sonic thing. Like, uh-oh, I'm going to fall. Except he will not fall if you just leave him here. But it does look great. Again, showing what you're saying, Dolphin, the idea that they really put a lot of effort into this. And a case where, even when this was around, I think I was not aware that they put as much effort into this game as they did. And also, it's a great case of looking at this specifically, because when you think about it, we looked at a lot of big games as far as some of the Disney stuff, because we looked at Kingdom Hearts, we looked at Castle of Illusion, we looked at The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse, and we looked at The Lion King last year, and also Adventures of the Magic Kingdom, which I guess was the most obscure outside of this one. And we looked at Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers as far as NES for those last two. But this one is something a bit different. It is something that kind of went hidden. You might think, well, Pinocchio in a game, at least it's pushing me over there, so I'm down with that. I'm getting a lot more length out of this level than I thought I would. It makes it so, yeah, it is interesting to kind of pull out, and in a case where it gets unexpected. Or as I mentioned, we played The Magical Quest, saying Disney game, as far as one case, should be split second from 360 and PlayStation 3, because that was Disney published. It's like, yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with Disney, but it's amazing. But anyway, I think we can get to the end, and we do fight our one boss fight, because unlike the movie, there's the Courtman, I should say. Basically, you gotta kick him. So this is the one boss fight of the game, technically. Basically, kick him, wait till he whips, and then just walk out of the way. And just keep kicking him. And at the end... Oh yeah, he gets kicked, and then I'm gonna also kick him. So we basically killed him, which is something the movie does not going to. And I get a bravery, or I get a truth medal for that. So killing him is a truthful thing. Like, you told the truth and killed him. Good job. But we're going in the water. Okay. So, as far as the story, we made our escape. Jiminy and Pinocchio did. They went home, but Geppetto, Cleo, and Figaro are no longer there. They do get a note from a bird that was sent by the Blue Fairy saying, wait a second, they're alive. They're inside the belly of Monstro the Whale. So they have to go and find him. And so Pinocchio says, okay, I don't have to breathe underwater because I'm made of wood. So let me tie a rock to myself. We're going out of the water. We're going to go find Monstro. And this is also where the white paper is going to come into play. Actually, I think I might have said earlier, it was the white paper as far as the thing with the balloons. That was the yellow paper. But the white paper, if you get that. Now we're on the seabed with this great wavy effect. But the idea is that when you pick up the clams, you weigh yourself down and then you go right side up. Like 5 of them, you go the other side. Here's the deal. When you're right side up like this, there's an invisible timer going off and those 5 clams I have will go away. The rate upon which they go away is decreased when you get the white paper. So no reason to not get it unless you miss it. Although, as you saw in level 1, it's not that hard to get. And to be fair, you can beat this level really any way you want. You can stay on the top. Just like the upside down thing we had with Castle Illusion last week. And when you hit 0, by the way, what'll happen is it'll flip you. So you basically just keep collecting them as you want if you just want to be on this way. But you also gotta be aware of the tigerfish and also of the electric eel. If you get hit by them, I will show that because the sound is really great. You get a and it sounds like a real electric bolt. So that's really cool. In this case, basically, have the bubbles going on there and then jump into the squishy flowers. It's kind of like the barrels in Donkey Kong Country a little bit. You hit the B button, you get shot out. You basically just shot up and down, but you can also manipulate it by moving left and right. Because you go the one on the right, on the ceiling there, boom, 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 boom. And also potentially skip it based upon how you shoot to it. And in the movie right here, we do have one thing that's not really reflected here that the movie does. And that is, first off, oh, right. Some of the clams have, like, sand and... So you gotta be careful of that. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna let myself flip. Kick you. Yeah, when you go to 0, you flip yourself. So in that case, you can pick up more clams and you can go right side up if you want to. But you also can take advantage of that by saying, okay, you know, I can just go this way and then jump on these guys to get up. To find more items, potentially, as well. Yeah, in the movie, the thing that this doesn't really reflect is the idea that, well, they're saying, we're looking for Monstro. He keeps asking, do you know where Monstro is? And every denizen under the sea is basically saying, running away in fear whenever we hear that. It's like, what are you doing going after Monstro? But of course, Pinocchio doesn't know. He's saying, I just want to save my father. That's basically the idea. In that case that he's kind of intuiting at this point in the movie, really, what does he want to do? Not necessarily just because the Blue Fairy's doing it, but just kind of naturally coming from that perspective saying, he's there, I'm going to go find him. That's basically the concept, and I do like that. So it makes it, that's the interesting thing I think about Pinocchio as a movie. You can go into this as well. And I'm going to go over this way to see, I can see what I do. Yeah, because this is just another path you can go across. But don't hit the urchins, otherwise get yourself hurt. Not too bad. One thing I guess I knew the movie was a parable and a fable about, you know, the growth of children and also the idea of, you know, morals of children and children, I guess, following that perspective. But also, in some ways, the idea of, maybe I took a bit different this time because it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. I don't know if I've seen this movie since I was a child, honestly. Since I saw it a couple days ago, as far as before that. But I think maybe one way I took it is the idea that, yeah, it is that. It is the idea of, you know, having to, you know, lead us not into temptation, the idea of how do we react to that. But also the case that Pinocchio, kind of in a way, finding his own perspective, kind of just on his own. Kind of finding out who's the person he is and realizing, oh, he has those elements, but we do have the eyes. Like, uh-oh, that is Monstro, so we gotta be careful. So he was there coming for him. Meanwhile, Geppetto's saying, like, we're stuck in here, we're gonna die. There's no fish in weeks. We're not gonna eat. But of course, when Monstro opens his mouth, he's saying, oh, wow, there's tons of fish he's eating. We're gonna eat for months. So at least be set for this as we go. Okay, so with that, we have the fish stage. This is reflected something in the movie. We do need to get caught by this, but what happens here is you hit the B button, you move left or up and down. Basically aim yourself and then shoot yourself at the blue fish. You hit yourself with the tiger fish, they'll growl at you, and then they will say, hey, get away, and you go backwards. If you get caught on the right-hand side of the screen too early, you die. But if you don't, yeah, you can keep going. You will have to eventually get caught by Monstro. And if you saw right there, I was off screen, just wondering, how'd I live? If you get yourself on the tail of a fish just right when you're off screen, you can get yourself grabbed, hit the B button right away, and get your way out. And if you hit the turquoise fish, they will shoot you forward for quite a bit, and they'll drop you. You just press the B button and basically then aim yourself to grab onto the fin of it, but don't... Oh, okay, right, the turtle, you can grab the turtle. Okay, so actually, yeah, the turtle goes shockingly fast. And this admittingly is like the rug ride from Aladdin, in the sense that after enough time, you go to the right, you just finish the level anyway. So we did find him. He's like, Geppetto, I've come to... Or to Pinocchio, I've come to rescue you. And he's like, there's no way out. There's no way we can do this. But he's like, I got an idea. We're gonna get everything wood. We're gonna set a fire, and we're gonna make monsters sneeze us out. This is elaborated a bit from where the movie had it, because it's basically just one shot in the movie, pretty much. So how do they turn that into a level? Well, let me show you. So there is Geppetto. He's just standing there. What we gotta do is we have to go around and we have to bust these crates. So it's another thing. You need that kick. If you don't have that kick, you come here with the stage select. This game is unbeatable, and this level is unbeatable, I think. Now, the idea is you have to get, I believe it's 15 of these on normal. But as you go, it's pretty much a case where you have to find where the fire is. I think you have to collect enough of these, and then you have to burst the fire. The fire is going to be on the right. And actually, this is also our second perspective inside of Monstro. Because when we played Kingdom Hearts, we saw Monstro in space. Or as Electra said, saying it's almost like the space whale from Futurama, as far as Monster's concerned. But we went in there, we found them, and that was where they were. But then the idea of, getting out again. And also, for this level, you have these barrels. You have to push them. And you need to do that to make some jumps, including right here. And with the crabs getting in your way, just kick them. Every time you bash a box, you get a log. They're invisible in this version. On Sega Genesis, you do see a log when you hit that. But either way, you collect it as far as this, and when you get about 15, they're going to start flashing. And also, those will collapse, and if you hit onto the, I guess the unsmooth wood down there, it's spiky. Yeah, you yourself hurt. In this case, you do have to be a little careful as far as the way the jumping is, and actually, I'm realizing, except for Jiminy Cricket, I haven't died yet. Do not get used to that. The next level, which is the last one, is going to be a case where I'm going to be dying left and right. I think. We'll see how that goes. Let's get, just get them out. And I do love the music that plays here. It's this very atmospheric case of saying, something's going on, a bit of mystery, a bit of, are we going to be able to get out of here? And yeah, it is flashing, so I do have enough. Basically, you have to kind of go all over the place as far as him. You go over to the right, and that's where the lamp we need as far as, setting the fire is. But before we do that, I'm going to look down. You can use up and down on D-pad to look around, along with showing you the great animation again. As far as that, it does let you pan the camera up and down, so you can kind of see what's down there. So, go on the screen resolution case when it comes to the Super Nintendo. This actually is a pretty good case of it, so it's not something where you gotta be that nervous. Also, as we're pointing out, the barrels and the crates will slightly move when you're on the water. And the crates will sort of tilt, so you have to be careful of that. And if you fall in the water, that's a death. But you do have a checkpoint going on not too far from here, so if I do fall in there, it's not gonna be too bad. Now, we do have to go over to the left when we're done, because that's where the raft is. But before we do that, we gotta set the fire. So you go set the fire first, and you basically have to make another jump all across here. Actually, I don't know if I can get over where I need to go. From here. Actually, maybe I can. As we're pointing out the barrels with water coming out of them, those are not cases where you can move them. But here we go. This is the torch we need, so kick it. There we go. Set the fire. Seeing the rumble. Yeah, don't hit the fire, otherwise you can get yourself burned. So, actually, like the movie, one thing they don't indicate in this is that when Pinocchio comes to life and they're having their nice dance in the house, he sets his finger on fire. not knowing what it is, like, wait a second, you're wood. Like, that's not good. And then they put the finger as far as that into Cleo's bowl. And it's like, it's almost like I'm smoking. It's like, yeah, I'm a non-smoker, people. It sounds like Cleo's not much of a factor in this game. Now I'm realizing that. But she's sort of here, so it's not a case where she's not present. I mean, she is in World of Illusion. We did show that. Well, it's either her or it's the fish from Fantasia. But now you have that set. There is Geppetto. Here we go. Last level of the game. Because we did get the sneeze going on. Now we have to row our way out. This is the last level of the game. Oh my god, this is the hardest part. And in any case you're going to see deaths, it's going to be here. I also went through 6 lives and 6 continues. Doing this in my practice the other day. I hope I'm ready. Because what you have to do is, as we're pointing out, Dolphin, thank you for choosing the Super Nintendo version of this. Just for what we're going to see because of the color usage. Which makes this a bit easier. Much more than Genesis. I'll tell you that for sure. Okay, here we go. This is the last level. We're escaping from monster. You seeing those red pillars there, the red rock formations? You have to crouch underneath it. But then when you see the purple ones, you have to jump over it. So you have to make sure you're doing that right. If you make one mistake as far as that, you're getting yourself knocked off. That's a death. But I have tons of lives. You have to be careful with the seagulls, but every so often when you get past that, there's monsters' teeth, and you have to pick up the little tornadoes in the water to keep yourself going. If you go too far to the right of the screen, you're in trouble. I'm a Super Nintendo fan. Yeah, for this game, you absolutely made the right decision as far as this one, just because on Genesis, they're all colored red. So in this case, like, yeah, this gives you a help of getting a sense of what's the pattern. So the purple one is for jumping, and the red one is for ducking. It helps them. But there's actually something else that also helps, which is the reason I'm going to show all the difficulties. I remember playing this, it's not easy. Oh yeah, no question. Anybody who's played this game, I will tell you, will mention this and say, oh my god, this part of the game. Because if you make one mistake, yeah, it's death. You do have checkpoint, but you do have to begin at this one and eventually get a point of saying, oh, by the way, I have to go through, and it goes faster. It's like, uh-oh. And it kind of tricks you, because seeing there the purple things there, but right there I messed up. Because the first is like, uh-oh, I got jump, and then I crash. But there you go. That's your death scene, which on Genesis you can skip. Super Nintendo you can't. But in this case, since I have a lot of lives, I'm going to get myself revived. So, the Blue Fairy is, invalidating something she says in the movie, saying, oh yeah, after I free you from Stromboli, I can't help you. This game, she can. I guess because so far I've been improving myself as far as, brave and truthful. And now I gotta show one last thing, and which we will show here. It's like, uh-oh. I was like, I remember the pattern, like down twice, then jump, then down. Oh, that's a jump. Right, that's the other thing. I was like, so it's basically about a pattern memorization. So, remember last year when we played, The Lion King? The second level, Can't Wait to Be King, was that case you had to do the jumping and the ducking. Really, that was the second level of the game that does that. This is the last level of the game that does that. So honestly, we said with Lion King, and the people who made this did confirm this, they said, we made it hard this way because we had a length quota saying we couldn't make the game longer on level, but we needed to have it longer, and we wanted to make it so that people would actually buy this thing as opposed to just renting it. Kind of like the Echo the Dolphin case, we'll get to that one. But this one, fine, this has the same thing, but it's at the end of the game. Right, it alternates. And down there, it's not alternating, and it's jumping. But also because it's going faster, that's the other thing about it that's going. But the fact that I'm doing a bit better as far as this, and I have as many lives and continues as I have, we'll get through this. Although, when I was doing my practice the other day, my god, it was hairy, because I said, I'm on my second to last life, I went through like 6 continues on normal doing this. Like, oh jeez. But it sure sounds and looks nice, and you're seeing the great animation there. It's like, oh, you're doing the rowing. And you can control your speed going left and right with this a little bit, but then here it just naturally speeds up. But if you stay to the left of the screen, or the right of the screen, I should say, you do have a little more time to react, but you also have the case where sometimes the seagulls will come, and they'll come down, although they will not completely knock you off as far as off the raft, so that's one good thing. Alright, about halfway done, but if we do die again, we have to go back to there, and that's the only checkpoint that we had back there, so hopefully I remember the pattern. Oh, there you go, because I got hit in the air as far as that, but also, oh, that was lucky. This game, we're pointing out, is forgiving. If you hit the jump and you're on the left side of the rock, you will still count, will not kill you. So one thing good as far as that. Oh, crouch again, jump. Okay, we made it. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, shit. I forgot about that. Because there's... Okay, one thing I want to indicate. There is one thing you have to do at the end of this level, and if you don't do it right, you have to start this over again. I'm gonna do that. So it doesn't mean I'm gonna have to do this part again by my own nature. I'm making that decision because I do want to show off that completely. I will not do that when we go through on easy and hard. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Donovan, you're right. This is absolutely the hardest part of the game. No question. I mean, it is the last level, so it just makes sense. Like I said, compared to something like The Lion King, we said, oh, this is the second level doing that. No, no! That's what happens to me, I'll tell you, with this, is that I sometimes fake myself out thinking, oh yeah, I can make a jump. It's like, wait, no, no, no. I can't make the jump. And actually, I'm gonna be honest, I've not seen how Hard handles this. So I'm not nervous about what Hard's gonna do for this. We'll give it a shot, although actually before we do that, since it'll take a shorter time, I'm gonna run it on easy next, after we do this. Well, after we show the thing we can do at the end, because we have a choice to make at the end of the stage. I'm gonna make the choice you're not supposed to make, and then I'll make the choice... Oh, it's worth pointing out also. Yeah, for the ones you have to duck around, you cannot jump high enough to bash through. Or I guess more accurately, the game treats that as an invisible wall. I guess kind of like, you know, the coachman. I do have tons of lives, so that should be good. I was gonna say this, under normal circumstances, I probably would say, like, if I get to the end of this thing, it's like, why would I ever decide to do this again? Well, as I said, for the purpose of Let's Play's sake. Because I think, I don't know how many people played this necessarily, or what, or I guess if they necessarily have the idea of saying, well, let's show everything off this way. I mean, maybe they have. Okay. Okay, so got through that part. I just remember where, this part is. Well, this one and then the other one after that. Because actually, the last one is one of the short ones. Actually, these are shorter than the one in the middle. But I have to also alternate off on that. And then jump there. Yeah, going to the right a little bit can help. Because at least it gives you a sense of saying, okay, I can kind of see more coming ahead. But you do get some background detail of saying, oh yeah, you know what? There's the purple. So you can sort of see that as you go. And then jump. There we go. Trying to remember if there's something else at the end of this. Maybe there is. Oh, there is! Okay, it is the same case. Alright. Okay, now I'm just psyching myself out the end of this, because I'm seeing... Wait, I know we're near the end, as far as that section. I said, now I kind of want to beat it just because I know that I'm going to have to do it again for what I want to show. I mean, basically, it's kind of a bookend what we saw at the beginning of the game, where... when you go through that first level, you have a choice of saying, you know what, I'm not going to make a choice that is beholden to the source material. And the game says, okay, we can let you make that, but no, it's not going to stick, and you're going to die for it. Oh, actually, I don't think we died. I mean, I'll check the footage when I edit this again. But I don't think you died, honestly, as far as that. This one you do, I think. But also, in this case, they're also tighter as far as how they have them, so that makes it a little harder, too. So you have to make sure that, oh yeah, you make that jump, and then you realize, oh, by the way, and then we're all set. Okay, I gotta remember. This one, and then there's another rock formation coming up afterwards. Yeah, we're gonna jump that. Crouch there, jump. Right, okay, there's another one after here. I have to remember jump. Yeah, I'm not making that same mistake again, but also... Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure I don't get myself sucked in. Jump. Jump. We did it. Okay. Now, if you've ever seen the movie, look who's, you know, hanging on the water. I can say, yeah, sorry, Dad, I gotta go. Yeah, you can't make that choice. That is the choice you make at the end. That's the ultimate, you know, I guess, middle finger to my father, saying, like, you know, I'm not gonna do this. I mean, oh, that's, oh, right, I'm glad I did this, because, alright, so you have to start the entire level over. Okay, so we do have to do this again. So there you go, that's your penalty. I was gonna say, this is gonna be the Steel Battalion method, which is saying, oh, by the way, you make that choice, that's a game over, to start the entire game over again. But no, in this case, I just don't do the entire level over again. which is fine. I did that on purpose just because I want to show you have to go back and get Geppetto. If you go to the left all the way, you have to start the entire level over again. So don't do that. And now that I know the pattern, now that I did it, I didn't use any of my continues yet, somehow. Maybe that's the benefit of practicing, saying, you know, I can do this. I said, because the other day, as far as the other night, I watched the movie, and I said, immediately I'm practicing the game, and also it was kind of a good thing to do that, because it meant that I was able to just kind of get a sense right away of saying, you know what, hey, the movie's really fresh in my mind, saying, man, this is a really good adaptation, really close. Maybe more than I knew when I first got this and then started practicing for the show tonight. Okay, here we go. I remember I had to do duck down twice, do a jump, crouch down, it's going to alternate off a crouch, jump, crouch, then it crouches again, and it jumps again, and there we go, we're good. Because remember, as far as me doing this wrong as far as before, the one thing about that is that we do have to show that we're unselfish. Clearly we're selfish, and they said, like, okay, you're going to be selfish, you're going to start the level over again. Fair enough, you know? I said, it's not the Steel Battalion method where if you do that, you get a game over instantly, and then your continues go away. I'm trying to remember, wasn't there a game aside from Steel Battalion that did that? Well, I know Banjo-Kazooie has something where if you put in some of the hidden codes in Treasure Trove Cove, the ones for progression, if you put in more than 3, your save game is wiped out. And they did do that on purpose. There we go, we made it. Okay. Not bad. So in that case, just walk towards the water. You're good. And by doing that, we are getting our bravery of our unselfishness badge right away. That is the end of the game. But first, this cutscene, we do have the case of having When You Wish Upon a Star, because we said, we're going to save our father, we're going to go in that hole in the wall. Monster crashes into it, he doesn't get through. But Pinocchio feasibly did the ultimate sacrifice, and Geppetto realized, as did Cleo and Figaro and Jiminy as well. But then what happened was, I'm gonna toss that away. Nice work. Yeah, so far we'll see how hard goes. Yeah, because that's not an easy part. Dolphin, you know, but of course, remember the case that he's asleep on his bed. My poor, brave, unselfish boy. He did make the wish upon a star at the beginning. This is not right. In the movie, Geppetto doesn't hear the Blue Fairy say that he'll be a real boy. He realizes he's a real boy as far as Pinocchio's like, no, Pinocchio, you're dead. So Geppetto he's so overcome by grief, he doesn't realize, wait a second, he actually is a real boy. But exactly, right, we're giving the element of, you know, honor of what Pinocchio got to and how he grew to be the case of a real boy. Here we go. I'm a real boy. Here he is. This calls for celebration. And of course, Jiminy Cricket, he does get that gold conscience badge. He's like, I would like going solid gold. Yeah, sure, you do that. He's like, when you wish upon a star, your dreams do come true. As far as the Blue Fairy's like, I wouldn't have believed that, you know, if not for the adventures we had. And there you go. So there you go. That is the end of the game. We're not done as far as the show. If I were to end the show, I was like, yeah, it's an hour and 20 minutes. This is not a long game. And honestly, as far as from when I started talking, I had to play this pretty leisurely. Honestly, I'll tell you, this is probably a game I could speedrun, I could think, and it not being too much of a case of, you know, getting stuff set. It's really, if anything's going to kill a speedrun in this game, it's the last level. But actually, you are seeing this, which is that, yeah, Westwood Studios was involved with certain things. I forgot to mention that as far as doing the animation, because when the game booted up, it showed actually the case that, like with The Lion King, it did have the same Disney animation case going on. So they did actually work with the Disney animators to get this game looking the way it did. Thank you for playing it. Of course, but we're not done, Dolly Finn, because I got more. And also thanks to Louis Castle, who of course directed The Lion King, and Michael Giacchino, of course the Oscar-winning musician who go on to make music for movies like Up and The Incredibles and the Modern Planet of the Apes films and Speed Racer, the film based on that. But he starred in games. He did do music for Gargoyles for Sega Genesis and also for the Sega CD version of Mickey Mania that we played, and also the Medal of Honor games, as it is. So in that case, they were kind of involved as far as how that's going. And unlike when you look at the credits in the menu, you do get Pinocchio doing the clap there, so showing the great animation again. and I'll go into final thoughts a little bit later after we do this, because I figured, you know, let's show this off, because otherwise this is going to be too short a case, because I want to give you the game and go the whole way with it. But yeah, of course, no problem as far as playing, but thank you for the suggestion, Dolphin, just to go on that to start, because it is a case with, again, late era Disney game for 16-bit systems that I kind of missed, and I guess a lot of people missed this. You know, one thing I want to check, I don't know if there's any data for this, but I want to confirm this just to see. Is this a case where there are actually sales numbers for this thing? I don't know if there was. And honestly, it's not one of those things where I saw it get a like a re-release or something like that, like a player's choice version. Although I will have a picture here when I edit the case that on Super Nintendo it has a little thing on the box that says only on Nintendo. That's not true. It's also on Game Boy and Genesis. And that's game over. That is what we'd see if we get a game over as far as playing through the game, but it doesn't have music as far as it. I don't know if there's actually sales data on this. On stuff in the 90s, it's not easy to ascertain. Yeah, and VG Charts doesn't say anything about that either, so I'm going to assume no. Okay, so we did finish that. I'm going to show off the other difficulties because there are a couple things I think are worth showing off. And easy is going to be a good case, so let's do that again. And we'll take a look at hard. Why not? Go the whole way. We did that with Castle of Illusion last week, so why don't we do it with this one? Another case where benefit of it being a shorter game, saying we can get more going on, and also seeing, again, the stuff as far as the story, which I did kind of get going on, saying, what's Jiminy Cricket doing? Remember, Geppetto makes Pinocchio as far as his puppet. Says, like, man, I wish he was a real boy, you know? But he does wish upon a star, and then that's the case where we can come in. But, okay, so, if nothing else, it's also worth pointing this out as far as the difficulty. Same case we did Castle of Illusion last week, which is, I said with that game is a good reflection of the idea of children playing a game like this, because they'd want to play as far as the Disney case, but also cases of people like me who are almost 40 who want to play this thing and experience the perspective of the movie, or cases of kind of familiarizing myself, but then saying, okay, how can you really figure that as far as a gameplay method? So, for Easy, as I mentioned, one thing Easy does that changes compared to it on normal is that you get lives and continues off of fewer hats and books. Specifically, just go back to that. It's 5 books get you continue as far as Easy, and 3 hats get you life. So in that case, you don't have to collect nearly as many as far as that compared to how it is. But in this case, this is going to be a bit shorter. And from what I understand, well, okay, first off, I got that page. We're done already. There you go. So you go to school, you immediately finish the level. So they shorten the level. So the only page I got there is the one for the seabed. They do still give you the kick, so we got that. And then as far as everything else, just to go to that, we're back with Jiminy Cricket again. But in this case, the moths take fewer hits. Because that was the other thing, I'll tell you, Dolphin, when I was trying to figure this out, along with me trying to figure out, I want to make sure we can have the show happening this week, I did not want to be in a case of saying, oh, by the way, I don't have a setup for this where I'm able to, you know, give you this game. And also, because of the lack of a PC case, me being able to get on to actually stream something briefly, it's like, oh, we're canceling the show. I was like, I had no recompense to say, oh, you know, I have to cancel the show. I mean, if I have to cancel the show for something, I'll tell you, but as far as something like that, I said, I don't have a way to do this. I had to figure that. But even as far as what I was doing it, I was doing my practice, saying, you know what, maybe I gotta look at those difficulties a bit more. Right, there you go, we're done. We only have to hit a couple of the moths. The other bugs don't come. They take less damage. And then for the Stromboli show, they do still give you the button prompt, but from what I remember seeing and hearing, you do have fewer prompts you need to make. And also the down and B or A kicks, they don't ask you to do that. In fact, the manual explicitly states we will not ask you to do that for the purpose of running Easy. So actually it's one of those cases where the manual, not that you need to play this, although I guess you might for the purpose of the down kick thing. Otherwise you'd never know that. This was back in the day, I think, when the idea of instruction manual was seeing something, and I hit the button twice. That was my mistake. Alright, so just remember I gotta do this not so fast. Okay, because I think, from what I'm seeing here, I think they're asking you to do fewer things. so far, because I think they only asked me to do 4 things there for the last one, and I think we'll see. So far, the patterns are the same. It's not like they're really changing too much. Like, yeah, I think it is the same pattern starting, which is that, and then that. Okay, so you only have to do 4 commands. So they do shorten the commands by, I think, 1 or 2. So if nothing else, that idea of saying, hey, what's going to happen as far as, getting a young child into retro gaming, number 1, or to a game like this, saying, make it easy enough as far as that, and I hit the wrong button. But make a case, I think we said this last week, the case of saying, well, okay, how do you make a game easy for young audiences without, completely insulting them? And I think, honestly, the Disney games that did stuff, particularly like this, and Castle of Illusion especially, I think they kind of found the right way to do it. Saying that, okay, it's definitely going to be easier, but also a case that it's basically kind of a bridge to the rest of the perspectives of the game. Okay, so, I see, okay, I see why they're saying, no, we don't have this going on, because there's only 4 prompts. I'm doing spin right, spin left, and that's it. So in that case, doing the kick thing, that's it. Okay. Alright, so there we go. Okay, so yeah, we're going back to Pleasure Island. Now, just to, full disclosure here, I actually have not played the rest of this game on this or on hard. Alright, there's Lampwick again. Yeah, look how smug he is, although in some ways, even in the movie, we can go into this. Just because we're playing the game again and looking through this, it means that sort of the explanation of, like, what are we really doing here is over. So in that case, open mic night, as always is on the show, saying, talk about other things noticing from the movie. The thing about him in the movie that's kind of interesting is the fact that when it comes to Lampwick, he's not necessarily a bad guy, except he's jumping on the balloon. I didn't actually realize that as far as it. It's kind of the idea that he thinks, like, you know what, hey, no rules, I don't have to deal with anything. It's something that, hey, it would be really nice, no coppers around, which is also why they have the copper balloon as far as that. As far as how they indicate that, like, jump down there, hit that. Make sure that I can also ride that all the way through. It's interesting the case that he thinks, like, oh, you know what, I don't necessarily need these responsibilities, so if nothing else, I'll tell you this. Along with this story, as far as most every interpretation of it, and of course the Disney one, because that's the game we're playing based on it. Oh, no. Okay, that was lucky. A lot of cases with it, it's that it's not only a fable as far as, the growth of children for saying, like, what are they going to do right and wrong, but also the case of saying, I guess above anything else, giving... Okay, first off, on easy, they give you arrows saying what do you need to do. You need to duck down, or you need to go up as far as jumping. So, in that case, they make that a little easier, too. So if you see the arrows and you see it quickly enough, you're going to be set, which this is not on any of the difficulties. So yeah, not dissimilar to how something like The Lion King did, as far as certain things. But unfortunately, I died there as far as it, and it was on easy. I died as opposed to on normal. And in that case, we'll see what happens as far as me putting me back. But I guess if nothing else, the case that with Lampwick, because yeah, we're just going on the coast like, hey, this is fun, But I guess if nothing else, the idea of children, I guess, in a way, not really being ready for being able to go off on the world on their own and do what they want. I mean, I'll tell you, someone who I guess is still, at this point in my life, I'm also, I guess, understanding the idea of what was it like when I was growing up, what that looked like, and all that thing. You've mentioned that sometimes, saying, where do you be rebellious or where wouldn't you be for certain things. I remember we played Freddy Fish, Case of the Haunted Schoolhouse. That was a great case of that. Kind of going into, like, what you're doing as far as your elements of side puzzles and things like that. But I guess what you're saying with Lampwick in this movie that's interesting is the idea that he's thinking, well, I don't need to worry about all this stuff as far as, like, I can just kind of make my own decisions. But in a way, he's not at the point where he can really do that. Or really realize that, he's able to manage that. Because, like, yeah, he doesn't know that there's a case of, having to moderate things. And why would he? He's a child. He doesn't have to focus on stuff like that. But then, in a way, and you can also sometimes jump over those things instead of ducking under them, the case that he's being punished for it because if nothing else, Honest John is looking for a quick buck. He's like, hey, you know what? I got good money as far as giving Pinocchio to Stromboli. But then the coachman says, hey, you know, you want to make some real money? Go and take these boys who are truant and we'll teach them a lesson as far as this, and I'll pay you handsomely for that. But if nothing else, it's just a case of him saying, like, hey, you know, he thinks like, oh yeah, I have no boundaries or rules, and that's a good thing, but then you realize later, like, wait a second, no, it's my downfall, and I guess in that case, it makes sense that we never learn what turns them into donkeys. And I don't know, if any of you know, does the original book go? Or for that matter, do the many other adaptations of this? Because as far as the other adaptations of Pinocchio, as far as movies, there's been tons of them. We've actually talked about a couple of them on the show before. There was The Adventures of Pinocchio. There was the one in the 90s that, Jim Henson's Creature Workshop was involved in. It was Martin Landau from Ed Wood, who was Geppetto in that, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was the voice of Simba and the Lion King, who was Pinocchio. And also Geppetto, and Jiminy Cricket, or they call him the Cricket, was voiced by the late David Doyle from What's My Line and actually Grandpa in Rugrats, the first voice of him specifically. But it was kind of interesting thinking that's one adaptation that does have a game on the PC, but then there's other ones. There was the adaptation of Roberto Benigni, who directed Life is Beautiful and also was in actually a bunch of Jim Jarmusch movies in the 1980s, including Down by Law, one of my favorite performances of his, one of my favorite Jarmusch movies, actually. A case of him making a version of that which was dubbed, which was bizarre the way it sounded, because they got Breckin Meyer from Garfield, who was John in the first Garfield movie, the one that Bill Murray was in. He was in that dub. I was telling Crocheter 64 this when we did one of the Shadow Hearts Covenant parts, saying like, wait a second, Regis Philbin is the voice as, actually, I think he is the, I keep wanting to call him the countryman, the coachman. Yeah, I think he is the voice of the coachman. Or no, he's the voice of, I guess, whatever the case of Stromboli was. But it was kind of strange, and that's the other weird thing about that, is that dubbed into Italian, or not dubbed, but subtitled into Italian, it's better. But it's also the case that the CG is really weird. People said, wait a second, is it strange having the adult Roberto Benigni, who worked as far as like this young, innocent figure with Life is Beautiful, and a little bit with Down by Law, but also Down by Law, he kind of was, in a way, pretty aware of himself, honestly, I guess, of the world around him. And I guess wasn't as, youthful performance intentionally, as far as that movie's concerned. If you've never seen Down by Law by Jim Jarmusch, I'd recommend that highly. But I guess it was kind of a weird case, because at first I was like, wait, that doesn't seem like a bad idea. Like, hey, it's based on an Italian children's book. Like, hey, Roberto Benigni proved himself when he made Life is Beautiful. I mean, think about that weird case of saying, how do you make a movie that's people criticize the movie, let's get into this. And hey, it's a Disney show, and given the history of what Walt Disney was, it makes sense to go into this. The idea that, what's that going as far as the idea of a young father having to shield his son with comedy during the Holocaust, because clearly, I guess nothing else, like with Pinocchio here in a strange way, I'm kind of realizing this, the idea of what both of those movies really are doing is they're looking at the idea of how do children really compartmentalize the world around them and the dangers that are within them, and especially something as horrific as the case of Life is Beautiful, is like, as a father thinking he wants to protect his son at any cost, he's like, look, I'm gonna have to try and shield him from this, but the idea that when is that gonna eventually collide, and is that something that's gonna ultimately backfire that way? A good point. I mean, and that's like one I didn't really think about, so I kind of sat here and thought about it. I was thinking like, why? Because Benigni made a version of this. Saying, well, what is this with the credits? But then thinking that, because I know that's a movie that's been criticized, saying, wait a second, is it making light of that? I personally don't think it is, because I said, I don't think it's making light of that. I think what it's doing is saying that this young man is trying to protect his son. It's like, he feels like, this is the only thing I know to do, and this is the only thing I can do to keep him safe, and if I have to do it, I'm gonna do it, but alright, let's just kick him on the side. Adults trying to protect him, because that's what parents do, and right, that's also, nothing else going to Pinocchio this way, because the idea that in the movie, at least in the Disney one, Geppetto's off on the side, because at first he said, okay, go to school, you'll be set, but then he's gone. He's like, I'm gonna try and look for him, but, well, you know what, I can't find him, so then I go off and find him. I find myself in the ocean, that way. So good point, Dolphin, saying, adults trying to protect them. So honestly, in that way, I'll say the question, I guess, about Pinocchio of a movie that, let me think about this. It's celebrating 85 years this year as far as the Disney film. The novel is way older, back in 1889. But just thinking all the hidden depth that maybe is in this story that maybe you might not think. And when I saw the movie again a couple days ago, I didn't necessarily kind of think to that. Even the way the movie starts, I was thinking, well, okay, because you have Jiminy Cricket singing "When You Wish Upon a Star," as far as that. And I'll tell you, myself personally, it was interesting kind of just seeing the opening of it. It's almost like when I rewatched The Wizard of Oz a little bit, or again, it was a while ago, it was back in 2019. As we used to do, our scenes to slow down, but not a lot. And this is the only time I've really seen it out of this game. Let's see. Yeah, when I went to see that, because they did a revival of that in 2019 for its 80th anniversary, I kind of was almost in a case of kind of getting goosebumps and almost tearing up when Judy Garland sings "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." And first, at the beginning of the movie, first, why is that really? And same kind of when I'm hearing "When You Wish Upon a Star" in this movie, but it's also the idea of, well, the way the lyrics are going, is saying like, hey, the thought of wanting to, wish on a star for what you really want in life, and even the idea of Jiminy Cricket coming out saying like, what, that concept, I never would have believed that until what we saw here, as far as knowing Pinocchio. So in that way, it kind of hit me, and I think then also looking at the movie, seeing that, yeah, it's a very entertaining movie. It has a lot of interesting cases. It's covering a lot of ground. We're seeing the game covering. But also the case that there's a lot of things there, and it has a depth to itself that maybe I underestimate. And sometimes it's the thought, the question of, when it comes to something for children, how in-depth is it really going to be? Just to kind of go into that. And that's maybe where I was kind of making the tie as far as, when we were talking about Pinocchio, and I guess the idea of life is beautiful. But you're right, Dolphin, you pointing this out, maybe better, the case of saying, well, we're going to look at the case of, I guess, a look at parenting. So there's actually a lot of different ways, I think, to look at that movie. And I think if nothing else, the idea of this game and the movie itself being the idea of why is it appealing to children and adults, because in some ways it kind of talks to both audiences in a different way, and something that in some ways there's a validity each way as far as what that is. And as we're going back to Monstro, to escape as far as him sort of to start. But I guess the other thing, also other adaptations of Pinocchio, because there's one Guillermo del Toro made a couple of years ago. I heard it was really good. I never saw it, but I wanted to. There is, oh, we're already done. Okay, so I guess you don't have to go as far on easy. Let's see. There is the one, I told you Crusader 60 before about this. He was mentioning, he's like, wait, what's that one? There's one that Pauly Shore was involved in. He did a voiceover as far as one, I believe it came from Russia. Then they remade this one in particular. It was Robert Zemeckis who made it. I didn't see the remake of this, which was based on the Disney one. I've heard people saying, like, you don't like it. Oh, I basically need nothing as far as the wood. Okay, so they don't institute you needing to grab the wood that much, really, on easy. So that's one difference here. I guess also, sometimes the hard takes on this were just more on the story, like Pinocchio's Revenge, going back into the 90s. But it is interesting to think the idea of different takes on this enterprise, and this being, I guess, one of the most famous ones. Although, then the book, of course, as well. And, yeah, there's the, because it was the year of, what was it, 2020, I think it was like 2022, 23, I don't remember which one, where we got the release of those three. The remake of this from Zemeckis, we got the Guillermo del Toro one, and then we got the one that Pauly Shore, it was a dub case, but in that case, that was an animated one, so it made more sense, I guess, for a dubbing than a live-action one like Benini's, although, I mentioned last week when we played Shadow the Hedgehog, a case where there was like a Japanese film that was a case where there was like an English dub, and sometimes it happens, and depending on how that goes, sometimes that can be done really well, but sometimes I notice with live action, sometimes it's harder to get a sense of like, how do you dub that necessarily, and how do you make everything line up if you're going to be going that way. Ow. And also you're hearing sort of the voice clip as far as Pinocchio. It is scratchier on Genesis. Not bad, but a case where, yeah, it's way clearer on this system. I mean, you can kind of tell a little bit as far as how the Genesis is with the way the sound driver is going, ow, as far as how it's kind of a little scratchy. You can hear it's like a young boy, but still a case where it sounds crystal clear on this. Although I guess it's not the most scratchy thing on Genesis when it comes to voice acting. Of which, what do you think about that? I'm trying to think, like, what's the scratchiest voice on that? And I guess I'll also talk on Super Nintendo then, which I guess would be... And the location of the torch, or the lamp, I think is the same place. Yes, it is. On the Genesis... Well, there is Awesome Possum kicks Dr. Machino's butt. That's very creaky as far as how he sounds, going, I'm awesome! But then again, even Konami, they had some trouble sometimes with it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Tournament Fighters in particular, with the way April O'Neil, but it's not April O'Neil, I think she's based on a character of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, goes, come on, baby. It sounds very strange, and very kind of crunchy as far as how it is. And on Super Nintendo, I guess... Well, I guess Revolution X, maybe? That was the shooting game with Aerosmith in it, where the way it's pitched, because the sample rate's really low in that game to get some of the music in it that it does. But so in that case, you sometimes barely hear the sounds of Steven Tyler and the band saying, like, if you're watching this, they're taking over. It's up to you now. Find our car and stop the new order. But it's really strange. All right, we're going to go back to the rafting again. So we're already done with the game after not even half an hour for easy. But one thing that makes it a lot easier on this, they give you arrows here. So, yeah, if you want to get a sense of what do we do here, it gives you an arrow saying, okay, down and up. So actually it makes it a lot easier. You do still need to go through, I believe, all of this. I think. But we'll see as we go. And I'm not going to go through the, I'm going to leave Geppetto here. And Dolphin, good point, going back to the idea of what parents are doing, because if nothing else, that's the thing about this that's really interesting as far as this Pinocchio film, really, or this Pinocchio, adaptation, as far as the Disney one, in any case, which is that for this, the idea that Geppetto's case is saying, I want to have a real boy. He has the perspective of having one potentially, but also before Pinocchio becomes a real boy. The idea that he's saying, I'm going to go out there and find him, but also Pinocchio saying, like, you know what, we can get out of here. Like, no, I can't do it, I give up. And then saying, no, we can get our way out, we did. And now at this point you're seeing right here that Geppetto's saying, row faster, Pinocchio, and he's helping us row and saying, I'm going to row as fast as I can to protect my son. But also the same case as far as Pinocchio doing it, of saying, hey, I want to help my father, And I love also what you're saying, and going back to that, Dolphin, because this is also why we're the best challenge Twitch, saying the idea of, the perspective of adults and children, and how do they kind of relate to each other, how they compliment each other for certain things, and also, I guess, where their perspectives are. And there's one case I'll go into, another case of Disney, that being Finding Dory, which was the 2016 sequel to Finding Nemo from 2003. Which, of all the things that movie's doing, there's a lot of interesting things that movie does. Including the idea that it takes a interesting look, a unique look, and a kind of... I'm trying to think, what's the word I'm trying to think of to say this? A kind of down-to-earth look at the perspective that Dory, who in the first movie is indicated to have short-term memory loss, it looks as that condition of hers as a perspective of what is it really to live like that, specifically in contrasting with the characters. Okay, so you do still have to do the same jump patterns as on normal, but unlike on normal, you get the arrows to give you help to get away of how to get through. So it is a bit easier that way. But in that movie, there's one part of that, because while that's going on, because she's saying, I gotta find my parents to get the sense of what's going on, but she's like, hey, I have short-term memory loss, how can I go about that? I have friends as far as like a beluga whale that was grown up knowing, where she has cases of maybe having cases of herself being maybe a bit clumsy, or then an octopus who lost an arm, she's like, oh, you're a septopus. Say, wait a second, he's nervous, he's kind of trying to mask himself a little bit. But then the idea of Marlin and Nemo kind of saying the idea that Marlin kind of goes after Dory in the sense of potentially putting his son in danger again. He uses her condition as an underline to that, saying it's because of this that's happening. And then Nemo says something kind of off nothing that took me by surprise, saying that, you know what, I really like Dory as far as what she does. She always is really nice and helpful to me, even if it's a case where has this perspective for herself. Like, I get the sense she's caring specifically. It's not even a case where she's necessarily saying like, oh yeah, Dad, you're wrong, or something like that. He just kind of naturally comes that way in this innocent way that a child would, and he's like, you know what, you're right. And so like that, and so it's kind of a natural way of him realizing, wait a second, I stepped over my boundaries as far as going after the way I did, but then saying, you know, my son is able to kind of get that. Actually, there's another take of that in Ponyo, the Hayao Miyazaki movie, which is also that same case where the son also says to his mother, I guess the same concept when the husband doesn't come home, it's like, you know, he's doing his best as far as doing that. And in another story, you'd think like, wait a second, they're just going to say, oh, whatever, he has to be punished, but then this kind of stops, like, you know, you're right. And the idea of the adult saying that to the child, but also the idea of that wiseness that the child can have too, you know? And I think Pinocchio can kind of put in the same boat that way, in a way that's really interesting, and something that I guess is, subtly reflected in the game. I mean, not as much, because, I guess it's a bit different, but I guess then when you think about the idea that this sort of has a moral choice thing in two ways, although it doesn't change anything. Oh, that would be an interesting case of saying, hey, you know, would you want to make Pinocchio into a good character or not? I guess kind of same way that, because we looked at Shadow the Hedgehog last week, that does that. Except that game says, oh, your choice doesn't matter because the final story goes against whatever you want. Or as I said, Star Wars Knights of the Republic, that's another game that lets you make those choices as well. And this is not a case that does that, it's another thing with Pinocchio as far as it. A game I've been mentioned a lot, Lies of P, which is actually like a horror Souls-like take, almost like Dark Souls or Elden Ring or something like that, which I don't think is like a moral case as far as like a decision choice, but something where it is kind of a different twist, and also from what I understand, a more adult twist that actually kind of works. We'll take a look at that someday. I know, I think Rashander64 mentioned, okay, he mentioned he saw it, but I don't think he mentioned he played it. He said, normally speaking, he's not good at Souls-like games. The only one he kind of went through was Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins. Because A, it's Final Fantasy connected, B, it's a remake of Final Fantasy 1. One of like 3, I think. And also because in that case, it is kind of one that eases you in as far as that. And speaking of easing in, that's the idea of this, but okay. We finished this on easy, so what's hard like? I kind of want to get a sense of that. In that case, we'll see how this goes. I don't know if it's going to go from 0 to 100 the way that Castle of Illusion did. Because remember, Castle of Illusion, we played that last week, just to indicate this. You have a case of going on... easy is even easier, or practice is even easier. It's beatable in 10 minutes. So this is not quite that. This is made easier as far as going through all the same levels. And from what I understand, I believe the Game Boy version of this, on the easy difficulty, I think it ends at the first level. I think. I'll look at that just to confirm it, but I think I heard something that version, for some reason, at least stops. And actually, the Lion King on the Game Boy that we looked at last year as far as a preview, as far as that, when we were going through all the versions, that one stops after, I think, like the third level. Okay. So let's take a look at hard. Let's see what this is about. And for this one, I do know to start, it's a case where now for the books, we have to get 15 of those to get a continue, and we need 10 hats for life. And it is still the same perspective of going through every stage, same length as normal, I believe, as far as the way that's going. I don't know if they extend them, but we'll see as far as how they do. As you go through one more jaunt through town, we also turn the auto up again, because I get the sense that I have to kind of sort of adjust this. And also, I think you might take a little more damage when it comes to getting hit by things, but we'll see. I guess in the meantime, as we go, if you were to go anything else you got on your mind, chat, as far as this game, other stuff of Pinocchio, other stuff of Disney, other cases of what you want to see from when we come to this next year. I've been thinking of that myself. I think one idea I had, and I don't know, chat, what you think about this. Actually, no, maybe I did take damage from that. One idea I think I have is, since also this was the case of your request, and again, Dollyfin, thank you so much for that. We'll get to that when we're done here. Whether I beat it or whether I don't beat it. Okay, let me just make sure I get all the pages. If I'm running hard, I definitely want to get all the pages, just because. My thought is, I know Alec first wanted to see Toy Story 2. He wanted to see it on the Dreamcast in particular. I have it on the Dreamcast. I was thinking of starting that, because that's another one that I know a lot of people grew up playing. I didn't play it growing up at all. In fact, I didn't play it until I bought it on the Dreamcast, where it is a bit more money than it is on the other systems. So, if nothing else, that might give me a perspective saying, hey, I'll at least be ready for when we get to that one next year. And I do know that that game is going to be multiple parts. So I'm not against multiple parts as far as this, because even the second year we did this for the show, we were doing Kingdom Hearts. We had started part 2 as far as that when we did that show. So I'm thinking starting Toy Story 2 there is an idea. Where on the Dreamcast, from what I understand, it is basically straight emulating the PlayStation version, sort of. The only thing I know it changes is it takes out one of the non-playable character toys, Bandito, who I believe there was perspectives about the stereotypical element of him. He was in the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation version, and so they took him out of the Dreamcast version, because the Dreamcast version came out in 2000. It came out about 7 or so months after it came out on the other systems. And I'm also going to ask Alec for this, just in general, because he, and I know a lot of other people played Toy Story 2 growing up, as Gideon's hit me with the boot. I don't know, on the Dreamcast, it seems like it's a little... I don't know, the way the graphics are on that, it is straight emulating PlayStation, and I'm not sure it necessarily is taking advantage of what the Dreamcast is capable of. But I don't know, I've seen some footage of it on the PlayStation. I'm just wondering if that looks better visually. That doesn't make sense. It's a 32-bit system to an 128-bit one. Would the 128-bit one look better? I mean, yeah. And also, one thing I know I have to check on that game just to go into. We're gonna play it, no question, at some point. Whether they do it next year or not is it either way. Although I think I will do that unless chat you say, like, oh, I want something else. I might, and I can get that as well. I mean, that's something I always ask for. But part of my thought of, when it comes to that, I do have to check the cutscenes because on the PlayStation and the Dreamcast, it does have footage from the movie. It is lower, the sample rate is really low in some ways, so it's not exactly watching clips from the movie. But I'll need to check just to see, do I get a content question on that, or do I have to skip the cutscenes for that? I mean, if I have to skip the cutscenes, that's fine. I'll have to get a sense of that, because actually, since we're doing the showcase next week, and you also use that as a quick skip, so I guess that's your speedrun strategy, saying if you want to speedrun this, get hit by Gideon so he knocks you up into the, on the platform there without you having to, you know, do something special for, you know, going all the way around. Just do that in order to get your way up, in order to get to the end. Yeah, that's something cool as far as that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, because I need so many hats and books for Lives and Continues. I basically just want to get every single one I can. But I said I can look as far as that, because next week for the showcase, we're going to take a look at a lot of stuff, as far as that, as we always do. And one of those games is Jet Set Radio from Sega. I've been wanting to show this one for a long time, and I knew licensed music was going to be a question on that. I didn't get a content strike on any of that, as far as what I've got in the demo. Playing through the game, I definitely would. So basically, it's one of those rare cases where, before we do that game for the show, I'm going to actually have to record the entire game off-screen myself. Just to understand where the licensed music is, because in that game, it is in specific orders. So I have to know where it is. Because I know, since we'd be running the US version. Ow. It actually has more licensed music than the Japanese version does. So in that case, I'd have to know, like, okay, when is Dragula by Rob Zombie coming up? When is Improvised by Jurassic 5 coming up? Am I gonna get picked on that as far as it pulling out, and also where to turn the audio down, where do I not? And also for stuff that they do detect, where does it give me a question? Actually, the thing it gave me a question on for Jet Set Radio, just to go into that, is there's the page, and we're going to school. It was... what was it? It wasn't even the thing I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh, it's that Guitar Vader Magical Girl song. It's not that one. It was picked up on something else. The music for the first area they're going to have in the demo, and we show that next week. That was the one they said, okay, it's owned, but you can still show it. And also, I don't know if this game, for that matter, is going to pick on that either, because we did The Lion King last year. Matt Furness's version of Can You Feel the Love Tonight from the Genesis version said, oh yeah, this is own content, but they allow it. So I was like, okay, fine. So in that case, it was something where they're saying, wait, you know, they picked it up even though it was like the gem sound of that from Genesis. With this one, I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, we'll see. I'll be curious to give a sense of that, to the point where I might even... No, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do what I did with The Lion King, which is... I will upload the raw footage to the YouTube site just as a test and say, what does it pull, if anything. That'll be either way. As we're still back with Jiminy Cricket. Yeah, we can talk Jiminy Cricket more. Just as far as that. I mean, we'll see when we get to Kingdom Hearts 3 Chain of Memories. We're going to look at that next year to start to get a sense of how we're scoping that. I know it's been so long since we played Kingdom Hearts. We got to get to playing the next one, and that's going to be the next one. But at least give a sense of what am I doing, because I'm the only one who's going to be handling that. Nobody wants that one. Well, okay, nobody in my circle, as far as people being involved in the show, want even a hand in that one. But we're going to do it, because we have to play that one in that order, because otherwise, when we get to Kingdom Hearts 2, as I demoed when we did the Switch 2 Chronicles Part 2, yeah, that's not going to make any sense. And when we get to Kingdom Hearts 2, we're not using that Switch cloud version, don't worry. That was a demo only. I have the Xbox One version, which will run through Series X, to look really, really nice, and all the extra stuff. And at that point, maybe because at that point we'll play through Rechain of Memories, the perspective of the story won't feel as lost as I did when we first played that. But we'll still have Jiminy Cricket around, and then I guess other cases as far as where he's in. Yeah, Dolphin, you mentioned Disney's Villain's Revenge. That's one that I want to take a look at. And also, Epic Mickey Power Evolution. I do want to figure that as far as the 3DS. Yeah, because I mentioned last week, I do want to figure out, of the consoles I have, or systems I have, where I don't have a way to show them on the program easily yet. It's Game Gear, it's 3DS, DS by extension, as far as that, because 3DS would take care of that. Sort of with PC, actually I'll tell you, when I was getting the new PC as far as the show the other day, as I said, benefit of being a Black Friday case, like it's a couple days or a week before Thanksgiving, they're starting their Black Friday sales early. So at that case, I was seeing like laptops and things like $100-something. They don't have a whole lot to them. I said, you know what? Look, I just want to have a cheapo laptop so I can then show, games on that. As far as I want to do my DOS night, I want to show some ancient stuff as far as going back in the days, like show those Carmen Sandiego games. I've been saying that forever. Okay, no, we're doing the dancing. Okay, first I was like, wait, the game's still going, right? And it's giving me the tutorial for that, which is the same. So yeah, if I can get that, it's like, yeah, the world can be our oyster fully as far as that of every console I think I've got. And the only thing with 32X, as I mentioned, is that I think I'm just going to get another model. I'm going to get a Model 2 Genesis for that one, because I'll keep my Sega CD and my, what was that? My Sega CD and my Genesis separate, because I don't have reason for them to be together. And even the one reason I do, they're re-releasing that. That is Slam City with Scottie Pippen. They're re-releasing that next year, and you bet I'm gonna buy that. Oh shit, I hit the wrong button. Actually, okay, one thing to mention, what I didn't mention when we were doing this, is that you do hit the buttons in the sequence that you need to, but if you hit the button too quickly when he's in one pose, you'll do that same pose again. So, I hit B there, but if I didn't wait, I hit A button too quickly, I'd still be doing, I'd still kick to the right, even though I hit the button for the left. Oh, they added way more. That's that. Okay. Yeah, it's getting a lot harder. Oh, yeah, there you go. I did it again. Okay, so hard is making it harder because the pattern's getting longer. Okay. Okay, so just remember I'm going alternating between that, and then go to the right. There we go. So it's not insanely long, it's just a case where it is noticeably longer than on easy for sure, or on normal. So this is where it's getting a little harder, though so far it seems like it's better than Castle of Illusion, where in Castle of Illusion's case, no continues at all if you get game over. And you also start with a lot less health than you would normally get. This one is the same. I spin in hand, that, and then go the other way. But nonetheless, we're giving the complete look at this game, because quite frankly, I think it deserves it. And it is a really interesting game. I'll say that going before we get to final thoughts on this baby. It is a game that I'm glad it was requested, of course, as always, but also just... Okay, I did do it right. But it's very interesting. Maybe because it also is one of those Disney games that... Right, it's that, And then spin. Very good. I remember the last thing. Maybe because it hasn't been discussed a lot, which I think maybe that's a good thing, you know? Of saying, let's take a look at a game like this that maybe was missed, including, and I definitely missed this one. And kind of putting it out there a bit more and seeing that, yeah, it is worth it. And it doesn't cost much, especially on Super Nintendo. It's definitely the cheapest of the ones. Not that it's super expensive on the Genesis, but it is a bit cheaper. So in that case, if you're going to go for this Super Nintendo, probably the way to go. We'll get to that in final thoughts in a little bit. That's a spin, spin, and then we're going to go to the left. Okay. And there's a nice variety here of saying, hey, you know, we're like doing like the dancing minigame, you know? And then we do another spin, so that, oh no, I gotta do the leg thing. I forgot to do the foot, okay, so I gotta do the foot, we spin, spin, left, and spin. Alright, let's see what's on this last one. And then, oh, wait a minute. Is it that one? Okay, good. At first I was like, I don't know if she's doing the down kick. So I guess, the Russian soldiers here, they're the only ones who do that, I guess. I guess they're probably gonna ask me to do it more than once. Oh, right, I forgot to spin. Okay. Okay, the pattern is the same. That's the other thing I'm noticing, is that the pattern that we have is the same, just they're adding more moves onto it on hard. So they spin left, spin right, or spin right, spin left. And that kick down. And remember, it's down the A button for this. And then we just spin, okay. It's spin that, down, and then spin. Oh, yeah, that's the new one. I think that down in B, I hope. Oh, no, that's not right. Right, spin left. Oh, wait, maybe that's... Yeah, it's down, that... Maybe it is just the normal kick. Alright, there you go, so it's a normal kick, never mind. Okay. But I'd never seen that animation before, and, okay, on hard is the only place you see it. Alright, so there's Stromboli's case. Alright, so off to Pleasure Island we go. Alright, so next. Yeah, hi Lampwick, we got one more joust with you, I think. Like, yeah, why are you here's the other weird thing, I'll say this. Okay, it is the idea that he's, you know, completely, you know, not having to be responsible here like all the young boys. But also the case that, why is he throwing bombs at me? Because, I mean, in the movie, he is kind of the idea that he's our friend. I mean, I'll say this. Lampwick doesn't hurt us in the movie, exactly. I mean, he kind of sees us almost as a case of, I guess at worst, someone he can... Okay, he says specifically, I'll take you under my wing, which is what he does. But not a case where he actually actively hurts Pinocchio, to be fair. Because the thought would be like, wait, you know, is he going to actually hurt him? The answer is, well, okay, technically he doesn't. And also, I think what I'm seeing on hard, I guess, the fact that they're giving fewer blue balloons, sorta. Oh, yeah, careful. Okay, there's another blue balloon. Yeah, just get that, because I think I'm close to the end. Yeah, so in that case, I can at least ride myself up, and we'll be set for the roller coaster. Thought, how is this going to be harder on this? That's what I'm wondering. Is it the same pattern, more or less? Okay, maybe they're putting... No, I don't think they're putting more items here. Yeah, because this is a weird one, because it's, I guess... I don't know, if you want to call it one-hit death, I guess it sort of is, in the sense that if I get hit by something or I fall off, that's it, and I gotta start over. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily going much faster, and I just avoid dying there. It'd be funny if the only time I died doing this was on easy, actually. Okay, so maybe just part of the item layout. First it's saying, wait, they have those items there for the purpose of being able to take a risk. But I think the intention is supposed to get them going the other way. Or just coming through here. Oh, right, I forgot. I don't necessarily need to go hit the bell. Well, he's not that one, I don't. Also, I'm curious, how many of these did I get? Because I feel like I've not gotten anything as far as lives or continues. Because I guess then, I'm curious then about Escape from Monstro. What happens as far as on hard? How does it get harder? Does it get harder? So far, this seems like it's the same. The only thing I would think is that maybe I have to last longer with Lampu here. I think that's probably what it is. Also, I guess that he's, you know, what is it? He's going crazy with the rockets. Although, if you're out of distance, you won't get hit. So in this case, I'm standing here, I'm safe. Okay, but I guess... Okay, I don't know if it's shorter when the items come out before they disappear. Alright, there's it on the hat. Book. I keep on coming on, man. Oh yeah, and the cart doesn't hurt me as far as I want to kill, I should say. I mean, it does hurt me. It doesn't kill me instantly. Okay, so I think I'm taking more damage. I think that's above anything else what I'm seeing here. And I think it's just taking me. Oh, okay, there we go. I just had to say something. Yeah, we're done. Okay, so back we are as far as this, so now to make our escape from the island once more. Alright, one more rodeo with the coachman. Alright, bye-bye. Oh, there you go. So yeah, look at us also running along with the donkeys there, but we're all set. Ow. Okay, so, you know, I gotta guess about how they might be making Escape from Monster harder. That's the name of the last level, by the way. I think there are more... Okay, they're doing more damage. That's one thing I'm noticing. I'm taking way more damage when I take a hit than I did on the other difficulties. That's one thing. But I think that the birds around, like the seagulls, I think there are more of them, from what I can tell. Okay. In this case, just remember, get rid of you. In this case, I might also want to go off to that other area, just to get myself set with items. Alright, well, I did get a life somewhere as far as how that was. Oh, that was lucky. Alright, so you know, I am going to go up this way. Get out of my way. I'll tell you, I really do like the music in this stage. I mean, I think in some ways the music of this game is underrated. By myself included, but also just saying, kind of going through this. I like kind of the way it sounds as far as this part. Yeah, kind of the way the horns go, the way the synth is happening, and also the way the percussion goes. I mean, I talked last week when we were talking about Cast of Illusion, saying that the Genesis is really good when it came to percussion. But this is actually one of those cases where the Super Nintendo's instrumentation really works well with percussion. Not that there's cases where, oh, that's worse on Super Nintendo. Played a lot of games where it's amazing. Especially here, I really like how it sounds. Okay, that's the other thing I think I'm noticing. There are way more of the seagulls. That has to be the case. Alright, I need some help. Where can I find them? Okay, I find them right here. Perfect. Oh no! Okay, well that let me get it. Okay. No, no. Also, it seems like there's more of the, I guess, the shadow monsters, whatever they are. Okay, yeah, basically just pick as much health as I can get on my way back. Oh, okay, and I can hit him in the air, so actually that's a good case of being able to do that. Oh, there we go. I just barely avoided taking a hit there. Yeah, this isn't too bad as far as the way the difficulty is. I mean, it's way easier than Castle of Illusion is on hard. Except, yeah, I just have to be careful because I take hits way harder than on the other difficulties. In this case, I definitely need you to get him stunned for me. There you go. Okay, awesome. Alright, in the water we go. So yeah, this actually turned out to be a good plan as far as how to handle this. And it's worth pointing out, yeah, if you're like, where was the splash noise? Yeah, it's not there. The Genesis version has it. Okay, but we're going down under the water once more. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to change, though. I'm going to assume that, I guess maybe the duration of how long the clams keep you down. Oh, okay, no. I was going to say, yeah. At first I was saying, wait, do you need to get more of them? We'll see. Also, one thing you're noticing when I get a hit, or, yeah, let me try to get hit by something again. You don't actually have Pinocchio flashing to give a sense of, you know, what your invincibility frames are. It's something I actually didn't notice until I was looking into it a little earlier. Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's going faster or not, as far as the clams disappearing. It looks like it may be a little. I also have the page that keeps me on the... or keeps me right side up longer. Alright, in this case, yeah, making those platforming jumps on the eels upside down. Not really hard, but a case where you do have to kind of keep an eye on where your mark is. Another game that has this gameplay mechanic just like Castle of Illusion did when we looked at it last week. Okay. Yeah, we were almost there. And actually, yeah, I don't think we went through this part of the stage a whole lot as far as being right side up. Because you can go either way. You don't necessarily have to get the clams to keep you up if you don't want to. So it does mean that there are a couple ways to run the stage. Sort of. Alright, that's also probably the reason why I want to run down here, because I'll get tons of books where I'm going to wait. I'm going to say, hey, stand here, wait, because then when it's going to turn me upside down, I just get the book on the way down. Alright, growl. Alright, there you go, we're set. Okay, so hi, Monstro, for a third time. And he also does a growl on Genesis, he does not on this one. Okay. So let's do the fish chase once more. Actually, one thing I didn't show... Okay. Okay, first off, you do not instantly win it. The way you did on easy. It seems like there are far fewer fish to take. Actually, in that case, then it made me wonder... Yeah, in that case, I don't know if I can afford to grab the other one. Okay. Okay, so from what I'm gathering, it seems like they give you either fewer fish to grab or they're more specific about how they place them. Uh-oh. Also, I guess they scroll the screen faster as you go, so it means that if you don't grab a fish, you can't completely get a case of being able to save yourself from being off-screened. Okay. Next stage, oh yeah, you have to be like dead on. Okay, so... Oh no! Oh no! Okay, so even if you're in close vicinity to the tigerfish, they start growling at you. Alright, come on. In this case, I'm basically gonna take my... or take a little bit of a second before I shoot myself off. Uh-oh. Is that far enough? That's number one. No. Oh, okay, I have to go really far. There are definitely fewer fish to fry. Yeah, that's true, you're right. Or fewer fish for, Monstro to grab. Okay, so they make you go through... Oh, Jesus. Okay, I didn't even get a chance to grab that. Okay, so I have to start on that one, so... Yeah, you have to be dead on as far as this. Okay, yeah, this is actually pretty hard. So wait, can I get that one? It seemed like I didn't have a chance to go back and grab the other one, but I don't know if I'm even hitting that one in the front. Let's give it a shot. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. One thing I don't think I... Actually, I don't think I realized this at all. I think you can control the... I think I can control the speed upon which I go to the right. So if I get a sense I'm going to be off-screen, I basically hold right to go and grab that fish. So you have to do that here in ways I didn't have to. On, no! On easy or normal. So it feels like I'm going to off-screen it. I basically hit right as quick as I can to get over to the fish that I can actually reach. No! And this is making you go further as far as being able to get into Monstro. Oh, no, that's good. You're right. Okay, this is much harder. Okay. But if nothing else, I like seeing that this is how they do it. There we go. I've gone pretty far. Unless, does this level require you to get all the way to the end of it? Or for that matter, is there an end to this? Honestly, it is going to sound like I was derelict as far as my prep on this game, but I don't know if I'm getting really far now. Okay. Okay, I guess then that's it, because you're seeing... Okay, Monstro's mouth, so I do need to... I guess get to a case when he's in the mouth, but now I'm going far. Well, this is a case where maybe there's not an end to this. Whoa. I said, well, I'll go as far as I can go, just to see what this is about. Okay, there we go, that was far enough. So, alright... I guess there's not an end. I mean, 'cause it's like the movie. You always get caught by him. Okay, so let's take a look at how Inside Monstro works. Okay, we got through that. That was the hardest level so far by a pretty substantial margin. Okay. Alright, let's see how this goes, and then we'll escape from Monstro again. I think at that point, then I think we basically will be at the end of the show, because we'll have done everything, or almost everything. The one thing I will do is I'll show off the codes for this, just because. I'm going full look on this game, absolutely, because that's how we do it as far as the viewer requests in particular, but really for anything. Okay, so I'm going to assume you need more logs for this. Outside of that, it's not really changing too much. So this is, I guess... I said with Castle of Illusion last week, that's kind of a special case when it comes to how it handles its difficulty options. Also, oh, you can't... Oh, is that right? Okay, you can't. I was gonna say, I can't move the... Okay, I can't move it to the right. I don't know if that's intended. Oh. Hey, Donovan, I don't know. You ever run this game on hard? Actually, to be fair, I haven't... Okay, I did briefly. Because at first I was contemplating saying, well, I'll just run through this game on hard, and then I realized, wait, you know what, we can run through all three. Why not? I can think of a couple platform games of this era that it would make sense to play that way. I haven't, okay. If nothing else, you're seeing what it does, and I guess what's the difference between the difficulties for this, and I guess the idea of how is it making it easier or harder depending on which you select, and also, for that matter, how is it, I guess, doing something I said again with Castle of Illusion last week, which is, how is this game tailoring the experience based upon not just age of player, but also skill level of player, and also experience with the genre of player. In that this is a platforming game, and I've sometimes heard people saying, like, hey, you know, I know Crusader64 said he was born and raised in RPGs, so the case is that, it's like, for him, even though he loves Shadow Hearts, he said he was kind of surprised that he got as I guess, I don't know if good at it or as attached to it as he did. Not because it's a bad game, far from it, it's a great game. Both of them are, so we've seen so far. As can I grab that? Oh, I gotta go this way. Oh, I hit in the water. But he was saying that is something where you have to be more active. He even, I think, said to me, he was like, hey, you know, I have props for you as far as your skill with platformers. I said, really? He's like, yeah, because you have to kind of be more active for cases like that. But I said, well, okay, right, there's my checkpoint, and I still have the logs that I had when I died, so not a big deal. Actually, okay, so, alright, so you basically have to get the logs up enough in order to have it flashing like that, and then you bust the light. Alright, so I have to go up there for that. But it was an interesting thing to think about, because then I was saying, well, wait a minute, what about RPGs like, I don't know, I guess Final Fantasy XIV would sort of count to that, but also the Final Fantasy VII remake games of what we have so far. Stranger Paradise would be a case of that. I guess basically any case where there's a lot of active button elements to them as far as how the battles go. As opposed to, I guess, selecting from a menu for turn-based stuff. But even then, there's a skill and an art to that, no question. It's saying that where that active case goes, but he said, you know what, even in a case of a game like some of those I just mentioned, the case that it is something where my reflexes maybe aren't always, you know, going to be up to snuff depending on what it is. Which I guess is something interesting to think about. But then he's a big one on Zelda, and Zelda's a case where that has a lot of stuff going on with sort of stuff based on reflexes. I mean, he showed that when we played Majora's Mask. He showed a lot of skill the way we played that game, and the way he managed the parts of that game that he did. Okay, so for this one, I basically had to scour pretty much every area, I guess. I'm not going to go down there yet. So you have to get a lot more logs, like 15 when I was on normal. It was like next to nothing when it was an easy. And on hard, it is 25. Okay, so you need to get 25 of those logs, and then you can go back and go and, what was it? Go and turn the lamp on. So in that case, that's how it's making it a little harder here. Basically, you just have to kind of go around. But the way this level's laid out, it's not too bad to kind of just go around, and it's not a case we really... I'll say this about this game. This is not one of those games... This is probably the most labyrinthine level of the game. This and Escape from Pleasure Island, I guess. But ones where the idea of getting lost in this game is not something really to be concerned about. Because even in a place like this where it's pretty open, all the roads kind of can lead to the same area. Which is something interesting to think about, even as far as a platforming game, because there's some cases where... I'm trying to think of a good case of a platforming game where it's been a question of where you need to go. I know sometimes questions on certain platforming games when it comes to, I guess, what you can jump on. I know The Wizard of Oz on the Super Nintendo is notorious for that, as one example. But I guess... Well, actually, you know what? I guess that would be like a level design question to a certain degree. Actually, you know what? One of the best examples, I guess, sort of initially, was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 for the Sega Genesis, in the sense that in Carnival Night Zone Act 2, you have this area where there's a locked door and there's, like, the spinning barrel around. And actually, it was a reformed bully of my brother's who gave us the indication, like, what do you have to do, saying, because we got stuck there, we didn't know how to go up and down. We didn't know you had to hit up and down alternatively to get the barrel to move up and down higher. And then he tells like, oh no, this is what you gotta do. It's like, oh, thank you, appreciate that. But, and actually even in Sonic Origins when that came out, they added an animation for Sonic and Tails to the sense that they'll look up and down when you press the buttons. Like, in that case, it's kind of giving an indication like, oh, by the way, this is what you gotta do. It's like, okay, there you go. So that, in that way, yeah, that, you know, actually that would be a case of it, and that's also a game I love, so it's something we're thinking that even games I love of being a case where they can have a design like that. It's like a question like, wait, where do I have to go? What do I have to do, you know? Alright, so, almost there. And then we're Escape from Monstro. This is gonna be fun. Also, I don't know if I have enough continues, or how many continues do I even have? Okay, going back to the thing with the crates. The crates will shift when you're on the left or right, so that makes it harder to hit them. Alright, Geppetto, let's go. Alright, let's do the rowing. We got one more time to do this. Let's see. And how does it make this harder? That I'm curious about. I don't think it's going to make the level longer, I don't because I've done this so many times already, both for practice and for tonight's show. Okay, it's more seagulls. That's where it makes it harder. Sorta. Yeah, careful of the teeth there. Keep going, we got this. Yeah, but sometimes it's an interesting thing to think about as far as a game like that, as far as one I really like, and then one where it's like, wait, I gotta kind of get a sense of like knowing where to go and how the progression works. It's not something maybe I stopped and thought about before the platform game. And also in this case, I'll say this. Oh, no, that was my fault, going left or right like that when I probably shouldn't have. Actually, one thing, I'll say this. The thing with Jiminy Cricket, I'll say that when we were the one level with him, when I first played this, I wasn't sure what to do, but honestly, when I watched the movie, I said, oh, okay, it's like the movie that I have to do this. Where the movie gives a hint, so actually watching the movie in a weird way is like a strategy guide for this game, saying, okay, now I know what I gotta do. Or The World Is Not Enough on Nintendo 64s like that. There's a part of that game where you have to outrun a fireball, and you have to know to use your watch rope in order to get your way out. But I hadn't seen the movie at the time, so I was like, wait, how do I do this? And I looked at the movie, like, wait, no, the movie tells me how to do it. So sometimes that's a benefit of when we play a movie game, of saying, hey, you know, we're gonna maybe get a sense of looking at that, you know, for the game. And I guess I'll be doing that for, yeah, I'll have to figure this. Because since Edwack's gonna be playing, the next movie game we've got on our docket in a few months, I guess I gotta watch the movie it's based on. And hope the hell there's one scene in that movie that they didn't adapt for this game. Which I don't think they did, but given who developed it or what they went on to make afterwards, if they made it years later, I absolutely would have put that scene in the movie, as far as it for Beethoven's Second. Well, it is the most infamous scene in the movie, if you're aware, and shit, I think is that my first try? Damn, okay, so I definitely got all the practice I needed, so there you go. That is how it is on hard. Not much different, honestly. Except for the thing with the seagulls. That's it. Okay, there you go. So that is the end of Pinocchio now as far as that, because yeah, that is everything except the cheat codes. I'll show the cheat codes, but whilst we're going over the credits on this one, I'll definitely go into my final thoughts, and Chad, if you want to go into it, and Dolphin, you too, because it was a game you requested. Thank you so much for this request. I've had a great time playing this one so far, just kind of soaking it in, very relaxing. Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much, of course, and thank you as well for jumping on, and also for great requests. And sometimes that's the idea. That's why I say when I love it. Yeah, I like it too. I really like this. It's something where I probably would have liked this growing up, but it's also something that coming back to it, now that I've played all these other Disney games, it is interesting to kind of think of like one that kind of passed me by, and seeing that it is a really good companion to the movie, and I guess I could see why Nintendo published this themselves, which is unique to think that they published this version, not the Game Boy version, not the Genesis version. They wouldn't have published the 32X version either had that come out. But they said, all right, we're publishing themselves. They put that only for Nintendo on the box. People say, oh, it says only for Nintendo GameCube on Resident Evil 4. That's not true. It's like, when that game came out, it was true. When this game came out, no, it wasn't true. It was on the other things. As far as saying it's only on Nintendo, it's like, no, it's not. Okay, it's only on Nintendo when Nintendo published it. But I can kind of see maybe why they said, you know what, we're gonna take a stab at this and put it out as a late era thing on Super Nintendo for them, but it's also on the other systems. And it is really interesting. I don't know if I'd say it would supplant Castle of Illusion exactly or some of the other Disney games, but it's also a case where, yeah, it's funny because the bar has been set so high for some of those things, so anything coming to play different, it's always going to have a challenge of saying, how are we going to, make this go, and how is it going to be, it's going to be compared to that, of course. But then again, thinking of, I guess in some ways you think of a game like this, or Enterprise like this, you think, how would this be conducted to a game really, and for that matter, how on point to the movie would really be, or could they make it that way, and turn it into an interesting game that covers a lot of bases as far as difficulties, has great animation, has great audio for sure, has a great look, really brings those thoughts of the movie and of the Enterprise out for you, sometimes maybe even deeper than when I was thinking of it when I was playing it for the practice, or even when I was watching the movie. And that's something that is pretty unique that this game does. And I do think this is a hidden gem. I would definitely say, thank you, Dolphin, for exposing me to this one, because I missed this. Not that I wouldn't have played it without you necessarily, but also that's the case. whenever chat comes up and say, oh, I want to see this game or I really like it, the reason I always say yes, we're going to do anything as far as it is because in a selfish way, it means that I get an experience that I didn't have, but also means that I get an experience I didn't have to kind of understand what are the games you really are interested in? What are the games you really want to see? Do you think, wait, maybe people don't know this, or maybe a case that I'd like to see it, and we've had this happen a lot, where people come in and say, well, we'll have a game, sometimes based on license. We played Bakugan Defenders of the Core this year. It's a case where that's a game that I don't know if I necessarily would have played it on my own, but if a case like I wouldn't have said, no, I'd never play it, because there's so much, like, what am I going to pick? But then when someone comes in to say, I love this game, like, let me play, it's like, yeah, that actually is really interesting and really fun. And I had a great time looking at that, and it makes me understand, I guess, an enterprise that I didn't know a whole lot as far as that, but also understand experience and a walk of life of gaming that I didn't either. It also makes for kids that people sometimes come by and say, oh my god, you played this game. I love this game. I get the sense nobody knows it. We had that when we played Top Gear 2, for example. But also with some other ones, like with Bakugan and many other ones we got. So in that case, it makes for a very interesting case as far as this one. And actually, let me think about this. I want to think of a good case of where would be a good place to go on music and also show the codes. So yeah, I really like this game. And thank you so much for the request. I had a great time playing it. And if you played every other Disney game, this might be one you missed. So yeah, if you did, I'd suggest picking this one up. Yeah, this was not expensive on Super Nintendo. I saw I picked up like $20. It's like $15, $20 as far as it loose. On Genesis, I'm seeing like $25, $30. Game Boy, it's around $15, $20. That's a bit of a different case as far as how it is. Also, I'm going to show the codes. The codes, by the way, in here. Oh, there's a couple. One is stage select. You press L up on the D-pad, X up on the D-pad, R and Y, and hit the start button. You get a stage select. You select level 1, 2, 3, 4A, 4B, that's for Pleasure Island. 5, which the game is unbeatable because you don't have the kick. 6 is Under the Sea. 7 is the fish stage. 8 is Inside Monstro, which also is unbeatable because you don't have the kick. And Escape from Monstro at number 9. You know, just for the hell of it, let me show this. Because I'm going to show you right now. You think like, oh yeah, you can just check this. I was doing my audio test saying, I have a stage select. I can just check every single level in the game. I'm hitting the Y button. You're hearing me hit that. It's not doing anything. Because I don't have the page for doing the kick. So we're going to Coachman again. See, I take damage from him. I'm pushing into him. I'm jumping. That is an invisible wall. So I have no way to get past. So this level is completely unbeatable. And in that case, yeah, seeing me collapse down on myself. So the only thing I can do is either reset or lose all my lives. You know, I'll lose all my lives because one thing I didn't show is I didn't show the way the continue works. Although the other thing I can do is, you know what, I'm gonna take some damage. So, yeah, you know what, my health is going down. So if your health is going down and you run into that trouble, here's what you can do. You can, I have it written down where I have it. Press start to pause the game. Hit right, left, X, 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 up, down. My health is recovered. Bingo. So in that case, yeah, if you ever need a health recovery, you can just pause the game and put that code in for the purpose of doing it. This is, by the way, for Super Nintendo. I don't think the Genesis version has any of these codes, as far as I can tell. Okay, the other thing I'm also noticing is that when I die, I guess this is also because I'm still on hard, because it defaults to the difficulty you had when you either, I believe, reset the game or when you beat it the way we did. I think my health stops it. Okay, you do definitely take more damage on hard, that's for sure. But it doesn't even go off all the way. In fact, let me see that. Right, because I still sort of had a bar left, but I guess on hard, you have more. Okay, when you have a continue, you have the books. You move left and right to continue. You are not on time when you do this. Basically, move left and right and hit start on what you want to do. I can't continue because I can't go through this, so I'm going to have to take the game over. It's like it's an elegant game over, but I guess also a case where it's not playing music here, which is, on one hand, kind of strange, but also, I guess, on the other hand, case of saying, like, they're not going to emphasize, I guess, too much that you did badly. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in, press the code here for B, up, B, B, L, and Y, and hit the start button. Yeah, this is going to start the game again, and I didn't put the stage select code in. You can put them both in if you want. You have max lives. So in this case, the way I read this, it basically says you have 50 lives for the purpose of how this is. So, alright, what I'm going to do is, I think that's going to be the idea as far as what it is, because I think that's most everything they showed. So, yeah, this is going to be a short one. But that being said, we go where the game goes, and I said, I figured, when I was thinking as far as on the check of tech I was doing tonight, and also for the past couple of days, I said, you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to go to, I'm going to go where Easy Street is, or like around that area. I'm going to put myself at the door between both of them, and we'll stop there. Alright, so yeah, we'll just take a nice stroll down the way. But as I said, we'll go as far as where the game is going, but I was just thinking when I was doing the prep as far as this, at first I said, you know what? I mean, I could do it once, and that's going to be the end of the show, but I said, well, alright. Not that I'm necessarily going to say I'm going to make a 6-hour show out of this game just because, but I said, okay, there are reasons to show this a couple times. There are reasons to show the fact that, hey, we can take a look at the difficulty, see what this game is doing, give a full picture of what this game is doing to get, I guess, gamers of every age into this, for its difficulty options, how's it representing the movie, how's it changing the way things go. Also, I guess I could... Okay, I'll say this, I probably will have edited by now already to see this, but maybe I do want to check now, seeing do I get myself hurt when I get myself slammed into the wall by the, by having the window opened on me. And that area is coming around soon, so I can at least check it close before we get to the school. Also, just to give a sense as far as with Gideon, I don't know if I indicated that. First off, he has way more... Okay, no, he does get hit by... If you get hit by the pot anywhere, yeah, you do get yourself hurt. Also, the smokestack there hurt, which I think I said, but just to give an indication. Okay, so let me look at my health bar now, just confirm that. Yeah, you do get hurt. Okay. Okay, you know what? The other thing to do is... I mean, I could end with Honest John here. You know, I'll get myself close to the school again just to get a sense of that. And the only reason I can't really end on Jiminy Cricket's stage is because I want to have the music going, and also because this is going to still be the enemies. So in that case, I don't know if I can get myself set so that I can, you know, avoid taking damage. Okay, so there we go. We are at this crossroads here of Easy Street and school. You know what? You know what? I will try. We're close enough to where Jiminy Cricket's stage is. So let me see. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to compromise. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to reset the game. I'll tell you why. I'm going to put in the code. I'm going to put the stage. I'm going to put on easy. I'm going to put the stage select in. At that case, since there's not going to be like sound getting in the way as far as like the buzzing bugs, I think we'll leave on Give a Little Whistle as far as on the soundtrack. Yeah, because, right, as far as the songs in the movie, there's When You Wish Upon a Star, there's Give a Little Whistle, there's An Actor's Life for Me, and I Have No Strings Hold Me Down. So, let me put this on easy. I put the code in for stage select again, which again is L up, X up, R, Y, and hit start button. Go to stage 2. Alright, there we go. So let's, actually, also, one thing I don't know if I actually showed. Okay, they're not gonna come and get me, I don't think. At least I hope not. Okay, we haven't shown all his animations yet. Okay, because... Alright. Well, hold on, let me hold this back. Will he bounce off? Okay, yeah, they do bounce off, so I don't really think I showed that idea. It's like, alright, we're just gonna put our umbrella up. Okay, so I don't think I'm gonna get hit, so I think Jiminy Cricket's gonna be... Yeah, he's smart this way, and he does look so debonair with the way his top hat, his nice shoes, and of course his black jacket, which you just get given by the Blue Fairy, along with the one that Pinocchio gets. Actually, you know what? Can I get rid... Oh, they're all gonna come. They're all gonna come by. Alright, so I'm gonna just keep it here. I'm gonna hold the X button, and then that's gonna be the end of the show, unless they all get a sense of saying, oh, they want to have a case of it. Alright, alright, a visual metaphor for the Thanksgiving holiday next week that I didn't intend, in the sense that, yeah, he's around with all these moths here, they're just having a good time, enjoying everybody together. Yeah, except you're hitting me from behind. You know, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll get rid of one of them. Oh, no. I'll get rid of them until there's only the one left. I just won't kill both of them, because when I do, the level ends. And then we'll go into one last thing of final thoughts where you can get this game, all this stuff, and... Okay, there we go. So because there's only 4 here. Okay, perfect. Just hold X button and that's set. Yeah, go for it, Jiminy. Yeah, Jiminy's got this for sure. That's the other thing, as I said in the movie, there's interesting that he doesn't have all the answers, but in some ways I think that makes him very relatable in the sense that he wants to be his conscience as far as Pinocchio, but even he says he has his own conscience a little bit, kind of invisibly, and saying, like, what am I going to do in regards to this? Yeah, we just said, and we will see him again. We'll see Pinocchio. Actually, we'll see him in Pinocchio again, I think, I guess we'll see how early we see this, because we're previewing Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories next year. I think we're doing that in March. But that being said, we'll see him again. Oh no, you're going that way. So I guess I'll just have to keep my eye out just to make sure everything's set. But anyway, that's going to be it, I think, as far as Super Bowl Game Saturday for tonight. For Pinocchio, for Super Nintendo. Thank you so much for this request, Dolly Finn. It is a unique one. It is, I think, the most underrated Disney game we've looked at on the show so far as our annual shows. And then remember, every weekend before Thanksgiving each year, whether it's going to be the Friday or the Saturday, we're going to have a Disney game. And it's your choice as far as what you want to see going ahead, and there's other stuff I also want to get to. As I said, Chad, if you do not have a disagreement on this, thanks again, of course, Dolly Finn, and thank you for sure. If you don't have a disagreement on this, my thought is I think we start Toy Story 2 for the Dreamcast next year, because it's a case where I was asked for that by Alec first, and it's also one that I do own that one. It's like, I'm trying to think what's the best case to get that sent. I guess I'm just going to have to go alternating off, paying attention here, which is fine. It's no issue. Basically just keep them off that way, and it'll be set. So, I think with the case of that's going to be the end of the show. Yeah, I would recommend Pinocchio if you've not played it. If you love the movie, it's definitely one you should give a look at. Even if you haven't seen the movie in a while, like I have, yeah, double billing the movie and playing the game is actually a really good case of itself. A good combination, honestly. And a very relaxing and unique Disney game as far as 16-bit era. And hey, the last of the case of it. And happy Thanksgiving to you. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you, Dolly Finn, because that is going to also go to schedule because, yeah, we got a big case for Thanksgiving. Because remember, weekend before Thanksgiving, Disney case. Guys, usually the case that they'll have a big movie coming out. As far as this year, it's Zootopia 2, which is out on Wednesday. But for this, it's going to be the case that, yeah, that we have that going here. So we're going back a ways as far as how this is. Yay. Okay, so, yeah, there we go. So that's all set. Yeah, so all right. Next year, I guess we're going to start Toy Story 2 for the Dreamcast as far as this. So every weekend before Thanksgiving, we got a Disney game. Keep those requests coming as far as ones you want to see. There's some I want to show, but I think Toy Story 2 is going to be next. As far as Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio, I guess we'll see them in Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories at some point, because it is going to actually retread some aspects of how Kingdom Hearts 1 went in an interesting way. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I think with that, that's going to be a bit of a shorter show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching the show. Thank you, Dolly Finn, for the great request for this. If you've not played Pinocchio, I'd suggest Super Nintendo. If you got the choice, it's only like 15, 20 bucks. But if you have Genesis only, it's not necessarily a bad way. I mean, even when the Console Wars show reviewed it, they said, you know what, the main thing that really kind of made the difference above anything else was really just the graphics and the sound, saying it looks and sounds a little better on Super Nintendo, but honestly, you'd be fine with either version if it comes to that. Game Boy, I don't know, because remember on Game Boy, it's a case where it is downgraded. There are levels that are removed from it, in particular. In fact, I don't remember if this level is even in it. Actually, I'll tell you, I also have a link list item for play of the Game Boy version, because it is not long. But I'll just have that as a reference point, specifically. And we can show the Game Boy version if you want to see that. Although if I do the Game Boy version, I probably want to mix that in with something else, just in the indication. But yeah, this is not expensive pickup, and yeah, if you love Pinocchio, or if you missed this one, yeah, it is an interesting case, and as I said, it's the last 16-bit Disney game. Yeah, it has a unique place in history. And to think that we almost lived in a world where it came out on 32X, that would have been interesting. And it would have been one of, as far as licensed games on 32X, well, there was Spider-Man Web of Fire, which is a game that costs a fortune. We're talking a couple $1,000s, because it was the last game released on the system. And then there was an X-Men game that didn't come out. There was this that didn't come out. As far as all the stuff that's licensed, I don't know. Would WWF WrestleMania the arcade game count? Would NBA Jam Tournament Edition count? Maybe. But That's the idea, because it was there, so you can also see what it looked like maybe on 32X as far as it, but yeah. If you got a choice, I'd say Super Nintendo. Dolphin, you were right as far as that version. Thank you for requesting the show, or this for the show. And with that scheduled time, we also have updates because there's a lot of cases where I now know what we're going to be doing soon enough. Thanks for my request and have a good night. Of course, Dolphin, anytime, because I think in that case, let's talk schedule, because with this being the show we do before Thanksgiving, well, we have our annual custom for Thanksgiving. This has always been a case whenever we've done the show, same way that the Disney game ended up being. I just didn't realize it for a couple of years. But next week, that's going to be on November 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got our big showcase. We have the Thanksgiving Showcase show. What that means is we are going to be looking at a group of games, 36 this year, that are either going to be a theme or in some category that makes sense. This year, we are doing the second volume of the list of Xbox Live Arcade games, because tomorrow is the 20th anniversary of the Xbox 360's release. Yeah, I think there was a period where actually that was something worth celebrating. Given how Microsoft has been this year, not really. It's just a case of me wondering, when are they going to go the direction of Sega and just say, you know what, we're going to stop making consoles and we're just going to make games. Because I think that's going to be the idea. But you're right, 20 years since the Xbox 360 tomorrow, and it was 20 or 24 years since the original Xbox when we did our play of Shadow the Hedgehog last week. But one thing that Microsoft absolutely did right with Xbox 360, I mentioned that, Xbox Live Arcade, yes, it did usher in the perspective of games being lost to time, but it's a case where, yeah, happy birthday to the Xbox 360. That is true, because it was a case where the thought of saying you could buy a game like a Pinocchio or something like that, not that it was on 360, but a game like that in a box for like $60, but then saying, hey, you can spend $5 on Geometry Wars, which is an awesome game, but that hasn't been delisted, so that's not going to be the scope of the show next week. We do need to do a show on Geometry Wars, because that game is awesome. But the theme is going to be delisted Xbox Live Arcade Games Volume 2. We did Volume 1 last year. We're starting at 3 p.m. this year for that. We got 36 more games that are delisted that you can't buy on 360 anymore, but you might be able to buy these in other places. In fact, actually a lot of these are cases where they are available in other locations. So as opposed to last year with a lot of cases where, yeah, you're not getting these again, there are a lot of these that are available in other places, and I did take down notes as far as where else you can find some of these. And unlike last year, I'm also going to include games that were listed, but they were made backwards compatible with the later Xbox consoles, so if you bought them in time, and you have your Xbox One or Series S or X, you can still download them because they're tied to your account as far as that, and play them. As far as some of those, just to give a sense, we're looking at Jet Set Radio. As I mentioned, we're going to definitely look at that. I'm happy to be looking at that. We got Castle Crashers. We have, trying to think of stuff that way. I'm going to show Daytona USA again, because I love that game. I mentioned Sonic CD. We got that as well. We got other big cases. We have a lot that I was requested in particular. You can thank AG42 for this one, because he said, after we did last year's version of this, he said, I forgot about Penny Arcade Adventures on the Rangeless Precipice of Darkness. He said, you know, that's one I think I owe another look to. It's one I didn't necessarily think that highly of at the time, and also it cost a lot of money. It was $20. So I was like, wait a minute. And it was in multiple episodes, so that was a question, but I'm curious to take a look at that. We're going to look at that for him to get a little bit of preview. We're going to take a look at the Fancy Pants Adventures. That was something Nikki wanted to see. I couldn't fulfill that last year, but I found an Xbox Magazine demo disc that has the demo on it. I bought it off of eBay, so I can show that. And also, I bought Sega Rally Online Arcade's demo disc for myself as well, because I want to show that. We got a bunch of other stuff. We have some big games. We got some games of licenses. Nothing Disney. Okay, no, that's not true. We do have something from Disney. I'll give a... I'll leave you in suspense as far as what this. We do have a Disney game. I forgot. First I think, wait, we don't have a Disney game. It's like, yes, we do. It might not be what you think. And it's not the Castle of Illusion remake, because that was delisted and then it got relisted. And it's still available. So it's not that one. But we got tons of games as far as this. We're going to be looking over those in a little bit of a short succession. Or try to, but we got 36 games to cover. So, yeah, buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. Bring your snacks. It's going to be our annual Thanksgiving feast. I cannot wait to do this. It is one of my favorite shows to do every year, and I can't wait for it, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. Then, as far as December is concerned, on December 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're starting Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, another game from Super Nintendo that came out in 1995. It's celebrating 30 years this year. I'm not missing that anniversary, so we're going to start the game. So, we're starting our adventures with Baby Mario and Yoshi. And we're gonna try and find where Kamek took our brother as far as Baby Luigi's concerned. We're gonna run that on multiple parts once a month until we beat it. I think I'm gonna need 4 parts of that. We're gonna go 100% on the entire game. Yeah, wish me luck on that. I've done it before, but it's not a picnic. And one thing we're also gonna do at the end of it is that we're gonna take a look at the Game Boy Advance version, because the Game Boy Advance version has 6 extra levels. Our play is gonna be the Super Nintendo entirely, but then for the finale, take a look at the Super Nintendo version. We're going to take a look at all the extra levels. I'm going to see if I can 100% those, because I have not 100% all of those. But I got that coming up. I cannot wait to do that, starting as my gift to myself this year. Then on December 13th, we got another Disney game, actually. We have Magical Tetris Challenge for Nintendo 64. It's from Capcom. It's one of only 3 games that Capcom made on that console. It is a Tetris game with Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Minnie Mouse, and others, where you're playing Tetris of the normal clearing lines variety, but you have magical pieces. Basically, as you do combos and line clears, you're able to get weird pieces either sent to you or sent to your opponents, but they have to kind of put in a weird place. You sometimes see like the lines and like the L shapes and things like that. You've never seen some of the pieces that you see in this game, and I don't think you still have. Even in the case you can get big boxes that go up for, not 4 blocks wide. I mean, you have those, but also 5 blocks. So, like, yeah, you want to make Tetrises when you're playing Tetris, right? As far as the 4 line clearance. How about Pentrises, where you're clearing 5 lines? Yeah, it's quite an experience, and it's one that is technically our viewer request, because No Like First was mentioning that when we played Final Fight 2. We're talking about Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. We played its actual sequel, that being The Great Circus Mystery at some point. But we were saying, does that kind of count? As far as a canonical case, no. But for our show, I'm counting it because honestly, it does kind of go. And it's not a wrong thought of saying, hey, magical case by Capcom, Disney case, Mickey Mouse, and all these characters are in it. It's an underrated one for Nintendo 64. It is also, believe it or not, the first Nintendo 64 game we played on the show on a live program in 2 years. It is also starting a new annual show we have for December, just to let you know. That's going to be our annual December Tetris game. So like with the Disney show, we're going to have a Tetris game guaranteed for a slot in December every year, because I realized when I came up with this as far as Magical Tetris Challenge this year, I realized that we have actually done a Tetris game most of the years of this program. Not all of them, but for the past 4 or so years, we've done one. So we're making this an annual thing. So that's going to be a representation of that. And then on December 20th, Dolly Fan in our chat, this is going to be a question on when in the day we're going to start this. We're going to be completing Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights for the PlayStation 2. As far as what we are going to do, off-screen I am unlocking all of the concept art by collecting all the Scooby snacks and getting all the monster tokens. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the save file we ended with back in August, because I know it's been a while. But Dolly Fan, there was another one I know you wanted to see, and we wanted to... I knew you wanted to be on every part of that. It's like, we're going to do that. So that's going to be our case. We'll figure on time. We'll talk about that. Okay. Yeah, no problem. And thank you as far as that. So we'll basically go through the story. We'll see where the conclusion is, what's going on with Scooby and the gang, as far as seeing what's going on with, the mastermind, voiced by Tim Curry, of course, what he's up to, and maybe find we will find the resolution of that, and we'll go through the gallery of everything we got. And that's going to be our last live show of the year. Having said that, we also have content going up on December 27th, where at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube site, I got one more show for Shadow Hearts Covenant. We looked over the bestiary and talked more on the ending in particular, and we saw the opening cutscene, which we didn't have time to do. We ran 11 and a half hours for the finale, so I brought Crusader 64 and Chasm 22 in. We did an off-screen show for that. It'll be going up on that weekend, and then on December 31st, our compilation show is also going up on the YouTube site. For Super Old Game Saturday Sings, we were cutting an album on Decca Records, available at your local Sam Goody or on YouTube on December 31st as our last video of the year. There's going to be a cut of all the times we sung on the show, including some never-before-seen footage. It's going to be quite a case. We've had a great time making it. I got to talk with them for an album cover as far as some suggestions about that, but we are almost ready for that. And then January. We get to talk January. What are we doing in January? Because even a couple days ago, I was saying, what's the case? He turned around, so I have to get myself set again. Don't worry, Jiminy, you got this. Yeah, he's been running for many, many years. He'll be able to handle this. But let's talk January because we do know what our schedule's going to be. And it's going to be a case where actually for a lot of this period, starting with December 20th, it's going to be guests basically every week for about a month. Or to go to what MGM used to say, more stars than the heavens. That's going to be our perspective for the case of this because we have Dolly Finn for Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. We have Virginia 64 and Chasm 22 for the Shadow Hearts Covenant case. They're in the intro for the Super Bowl Game Saturday Sings case. And then in 2026, Edwack and Nikki are returning for the first time in a while. They're going to be on Saturdays. Like, wait, it's a Saturday show for them. Usually they need Friday, but nope, Saturday this time. So on January 3rd, is that right? I just want to make sure I'm getting that date set. Okay, let me take a look at that as far as what this is. Yeah, it is. I just want to make sure I have the date right. Okay, so January 3rd, Edwack is going to be playing another licensed game for Super Nintendo, based on the movie. He's going to be playing Beethoven, the Ultimate Canine Caper. It is an adaptation of Beethoven 2nd, the movie from the 90s, about the St. Bernard dog, and in this case, you have to save Missy and all of her puppies, and all of your puppies as well. It's not a long game. He bought this thing in box when he was at Too Many Games, the game he grew up with. So it's going to be a pretty short one, but he also said, hey, you know, in cases like that, let me pull something else out as far as an extra, as far as what he's got. Well, you got to wait to see what he has, because I don't even know what he has. He said, I'm going to think of something else. But we're figuring that, and that will be coming up for January 3rd at a time to be determined. Don't know when. He did say he wanted it earlier, so it will not be 7. We'll figure what it is, and I'll let you know at the very latest when we do Night of 100 Frights in about a month. And then the week after that, on January 10th, we're starting our play of definitely one of the most important games of the 1990s. Came out actually 2 months before Pinocchio here. Gemini 96 is coming back to the show. It's been a while for him, but his next game, he said, I want to do Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64. And that is celebrating 30 years next year. You bet we're going to be remembering that one. And based upon his background on this one, A, he called dibs on it, so it's all his, and B, it has to be him doing this. And he's looking forward to it. He's already started practicing. He knows what he's doing, because remember, it's one of those cases where Gemini 96, he's always wonderfully modest as far as skill of games, but as soon as he walks in a room and shows people what he has on any game he knows and loves, it's like, yeah, never any questions, like, what's your skill? It's like, no, we're never going to doubt you. Not that we ever did, but then you realize, like, oh my god, there you go. And he's got some stuff going on as far as how he's going to handle that. We're going to be doing that in multi-parts, for sure. But on January 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I guess, unless the time changes, I'll talk with him, just confirm. Super Mario 64, we're beginning it. And then week after that, we're going to have 2 Friday shows in a row. I was thinking about something Electver said when we played Title Legends 2 back in May. He said, I get the sense that people don't know Bust-A-Move or Puzzle Bobble. Dolly Finn, we played Puzzle Bobble. But we played Puzzle Bobble 2X / Bust-A-Move 2 Arcade Edition and Puzzle Bobble 3X / Bust-A-Move 3 Arcade S Tributes when we did our puzzle showcase 2 years ago, next weekend. But I said, okay, we gotta change that. We're gonna have a perspective of it. Yes, we did, and you had a good time saying also when we played it, because we had the Switch Super Nintendo controller. You said, quote, I love this Super Nintendo controller. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, we're gonna do, he said, Electver said, hey, you know, I don't know, get a sense people know this. So, we have another 30th anniversary show on December 16th, on January 16th. So, that's gonna be a Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna be playing Bust-A-Move 2. I'm gonna be using that collection from Switch to play it. We'll take our full look as far as Bust-A-Move 2, because it is porting the arcade edition from Sega Saturn in that release. It also is porting Puzzle Bobble 2X and 2 from the arcade. So this will be our full one-stop shop of the purpose of saying, hey, puzzle case for Bub and Bob the Dinosaurs from Bubble Bobble. We'll have that going on. Well, I'll understand aspect of the story that I didn't when you were asking, like, wait a second, why is he going after that girl? It's like, I don't know, I'll maybe have an answer. We'll have an answer when we get to that. And we'll have a representation of that great title puzzle game. Because you're shooting off the bubbles and getting everything set with that insanely cheery perspective of them saying Taito and it's good stuff, and that I think is the way we start. And 30 years of Bust-A-Move 2 next year, no question. And then the week after that's also gonna be a Friday show on January 23rd for part 2 of Yoshi's Island for Super Nintendo, and then at the end of the month on January 30th, we're starting our next initiative. Because last week we ended our Super Bowl Game Saturday Second Chance, where every month this year we're playing a game we played already for the show in a new way. We'll still do that going ahead, but not every month. Every month next year, though, we're going to come to a game that's really, really long, and a case where all of you have asked, maybe we can represent this, but also you want to see it, and also a case where I said, these games are sometimes really long, so I got to get a sense from all of you. What do we do? How do we handle it? Even games I'm picking to show off, I should say, I think maybe you have a good idea of what's the best way to scope some of this stuff. Unless Nikki comes up with a better name, because she's been thinking of a potential one. It will be known as Super Bowl Game Saturday Scoping Session. We take a really long game, or a game where there's a lot of stuff to get a sense of what do we do with this, and we're going to play one show, and we're going to get a sense of a plan of how we do it, but also give a look at this game. And to start, I'm going to show a game I've wanted to show for a while, and I've mentioned for a while. Take a look at Skies of Arcadia for the Dreamcast. One of the best RPGs on the console, and one that unfortunately has not gotten a re-release, and unfortunately costs a lot of money. Or hasn't gotten a re-release recently, where it's not something we can get for a cheap price. Every version of that's over $100. I have it on the Dreamcast, where it's going to look gorgeous, but also going to be flashlight warnings, so if you have epilepsy, be careful anytime we get into battles. I'll reiterate that when we get there. But it's a wonderful game, and I definitely want to give a sense of that, get a sense of what's the best way to handle this, and we can talk a bit about this great RPG from Overworks. People from Sega, or actually they worked at Sega, and they worked on some stuff like Shinobi, but they also made stuff like Shinobi on the PS2 and Nightshade and some other stuff as well. And then as far as other stuff we have Super Mario 64 continuing in February, Yoshi's Island continuing in February. I think our scoping session that month is going to be for BlazBlue Calamity Trigger, but I don't know. I might do Sonic Labyrinth from Game Gear, and then getting into March, I know we'll have Yoshi's Island, that's probably going to be finishing. Super Mario 64 is probably going to be either done or close to done. We'll have another part. And then I want to get some sports games. And those are cases where they're going to licenses. So for March, I want to show off Looney Tunes B-Ball for the Super Nintendo. That is from Sunsoft and Acclaim. It's a really interesting NBA Jam like with Looney Tunes, and perfect for your March Madness case. And then my plan is we're going to take a look at Kingdom Hearts 2 Chain of Memories for the scoping session for that month. And then in April, we have Mario 64, which is probably going to its finale. I want to show World Series Baseball on Sega Genesis, so I'm going to show that. And then also for our April Fool's Day show of is it a bad game? This is a question. I don't know if it's a bad game. What I've played so far, I don't think it is, but maybe a case of finding another hidden gem. And what I've played so far, maybe it is. Digimon Racing for the Game Boy Advance. And then the only other cases we have, in May, we're going to have our next compilation show that's going to be for Midway Arcade Treasures 3 for the GameCube. And then also have a bunch of Nintendo 64 arcade ports to toss in, because there's not a whole lot of games in that Midway Arcade Treasures 3, unfortunately. And it's a disappointing collection, despite a really good perspective of Digital Clip's making it, and also the case of some really good racing games. But questions on emulation, but it was like 20 years ago. So we'll get a sense that we'll at least look at some really interesting games, though. And you're not going to want to miss that for sure. And I think, yeah, for most of that, that's most everything. But we'll have more stuff going on for next year. And more viewer requests. And of course, next year, we start Toy Story 2 for not for Super Nintendo. Toy Story 2 for the Dreamcast. And we get to Toy Story 1 at some point. We're going to play the Genesis version, because that has an extra level, just to go on that. But Toy Story 2 on the Dreamcast this weekend, next year, that is the tentative plan. If it changes, I'll let you know. And if any of the stuff changes, I'll let you know. But either way, we're in for this for the long haul. And especially with the tech I got, as far as everything's set, we're back in business. We'll be good as far as. So that's going to be it. And thank you so much for watching Super Bowl Game Saturday. Thank you so much, Dolly Film, for the quest of Pinocchio. I had a great time playing it. I had a great time going into it with you and everybody else in our best chat on Twitch, and all of your insights as well. Good night. I'm looking forward to next week. I'll thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it as well. With that, have a great rest of your night, a great start of your weekend, your pre-Thanksgiving weekend. Have a great week coming forward, shorter week as far as work week, and a happy Thanksgiving to you, of course. I'll see you next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Delisted Xbox Live Showcase Volume 2. Tons of gaming goodness. You are not going to want to miss a minute of it. Till then, keep being awesome. Have a wonderful night. Bye. Dolly Finn says bye to you as well. Take care. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.